Hello and welcome to a tier list for Monster Train. We're doing all of the champion paths today in honor of my all champion path challenge that I did over the last month or so. I'm joined by, well, everyone. Go ahead, everyone, in whatever order you'd like.
Yep, it's all of us.
I guess we are all here. That's true. We're kind of like, what do we call ourselves? The YouTube card gamers?
Yeah.
That's us.
So if you're unfamiliar, we got Cranberry.
Am I supposed to say like hello?
Yeah, so they could in case they don't know, they can associate name and voice.
Hey, that makes sense. Hey, hello.
We got
It's
Dusk.
actually really smart. Yeah, I'm actually Dusk. It works out that I talked over the person introducing me at the same time, so.
Very clean. And we got Gabriot.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I don't know, it's been a while since we did a tier list, so I thought it'd be fun to sit down and do one, and this seems like a fun one to do.
Yeah, totally. You know, I'm going to ask right now, is it Gabriot or Gabriot?
It is either. I always used Gabriot, but people started saying Gabriel, and I just went with it.
I've been using
So,
Gabriot forever, and I'm just like, I heard Voyix say it one way, and I was like, oh man, have I been wrong?
nah, it's what do you call it? It's an amorphous name.
Hmm.
I've been using it right since day one.
Genius.
Cranberry knows.
Yeah.
All right, so at the beginning of the video, we all get some deep lore. Love that.
Yeah.
This is that
keep it
lore
going.
video.
This is the Monster Train lore video.
Oh, it's
Surprise.
finally happening.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all right. I'll have a link to all of their channels in the description if you want to check them out, and I will also have a link to the tier maker here, so if you want to make your own, you can make one and go throw it in my Discord or wherever. And shall we?
Yeah, I want to see everyone's opinion, so you know how wrong we are.
Mhm.
I gotta hear it.
Yeah, you could also leave it in a comment.
I do also want to preface this by saying I haven't played original Monster Train in like a very long time. I've been playing Dusk's balance patch mod recently a little bit, but as far as like just normal Monster Train, I haven't played in probably like 2 months almost, something like that.
Wow, okay.
So something to keep in mind. I'm a little rusty. I'm a little rusty here, so take that with a grain of salt when you hear my opinions today.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. No worries. I'm glad to see you're playing the mod. I'll have to ask you later what you think of it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty neat.
I've
Hell
only
yeah.
heard good things.
Have you still not played it, Voyix?
I played it a while ago. I've played a
All
little
right.
bit.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I played it on stream for a bit, I think.
That's
But-
right.
Yeah, it's been a while. I should play it.
Mhm.
That'll probably be my next series I do for YouTube when I'm sick of playing normal again. Alright, so I've organized mine in some way, but I think we can just rotate through and then we'll just adapt to whatever they call out. But we're going to generally do like Hellhorned, Exile Hellhorned, Awoken, Exile Awoken, and so on. So the first one in my order is Brawler Prince, and I will give Brawler Prince an A tier. I think that Brawler Prince, he's basically just a good all-arounder, and he's in a clan that can support him very well, especially if you pair him with a clan that can also give him attack. He does pretty well. And yeah, I mean, overall, he meshes well with the other paths, he's fun to play, he scales well with his own clan. I think he's basically the poster child for a good but not broken champion.
Now, so you got rid of C tier. So you have like what, B+, B- on yours?
No, I got rid of D tier, so mine's SA,
Oh,
B+,
okay.
B, C, F.
Got it. Okay, so when I say that I put Brawler in B tier, it actually means third from the top. 'cause
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
have a B+.
Yeah.
But I think he's good, but he requires a good amount of work to get to any point where he can reasonably contribute. I do still throw him away, and the reason is really just because infusions, right? I mean, an Animus of Will with the ability to be given an infusion just performs better. The one thing I'll give Brawler Prince kind of kudos for is, hey, he automatically solves the problem of hitting enough times to clear waves and also win Relentless. You've just got to keep him alive and make him do more damage, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm similar there. It's hard for me to rank this one because like if you force me to use Brawler, it will probably be good. So in that sense, I can lean toward A. I actually ended up putting him in C though, just because I guess the context of like I will almost always pick Wrathful over it because I do plan to throw Prince away, and Wrathful's just typically gonna, especially if I didn't start with like a ritual battle, it's typically just gonna give me a better first 3 rings. So it's like my skip rate is so high on Brawler that it seemed weird for me to give it a good rating, if that makes sense.
That's actually really interesting because I'm almost always willing to trade like 20 to 30 pyre health in the early game just to get Brawler to the point where it does something useful. I'll give up a Wrathful start that's much stronger in order to take Brawler. And the real reason is I guess I just hedge against. Sometimes you're going to miss every multi-strike in every shop and you're going to see bad banner units. So even if you miss everything else, at least Brawler can kind of answer the mail and get your run across the finish line. That's usually my take, and I'm willing to trade quite a bit of pyre health early on for that.
Yeah, I think I can see that, definitely.
Yeah, my only concern for Brawler, and after I say this, Cranberry, I'm going to open the floor to you so you get your chance too. My only concern for Brawler is that I feel like sometimes your clans can miss everything at the start and then you don't have any damage scaling. Like if you hit no rage and you hit no like razor sharp edges or anything like that, you can end up with just a 6x2, which is sad. Go ahead, Cranberry.
Floor open to me now. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm in the B plus range for Brawler. I would say I don't you guys more or less covered it all. A little bit weak in the early game, especially with no support, but definitely more end game potential than the other ones. So I think overall a decent champion, but it can be especially weak if you don't have any support. But like Voyek said before, I think there is a lot of good support in Hellhorn already for Brawler, so it's not too hard to make it work. It's really start dependent. Like what you have working with, at the start, if you have just like a fledgling imp, it's usually enough to get you through the early game. So I don't know. B plus,
yeah,
has good potential, but also potentially very weak in the early game. So
yeah, another part of why I put him in A tier also is because he meshes well with the other paths for what that's worth. But I think it's fair to say that Prince is on average a little weaker, and it feels like he got a little left behind by the DLC.
Yeah, I don't think it would take much to get him to a point where I'd feel a lot better about him. I mean, even just giving him 10 base stats instead of 6 base stats does huge amounts of work for his early game contributions and his late game pass abilities.
I agree. I think Wrathful should, we'll talk about it when we get to Wrathful, but I think Wrathful also could use more HP. Just across the board, I think Prince needs more HP. That's the solution to a lot of the champion problems, I feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Would you like to move on?
I would.
Let's do it.
Does someone else want to go next, or do you want me to just start for each of these? Up to you guys.
It's your video, you decide.
Yeah, you do it, man.
Okay, I can do it. That's fine. The next one in my listing here is Reaper Prince, who I will put in the second tier from the bottom, which is C tier. I think, so when I think about these champions and how I'm going to rate them, I think about primarily if there's any use case whatsoever, because on top of the champions being good, I want them to be fun every now and then so I can spice it up and go, I'm going to play Reaper Prince today. I've had like 2 runs in memory where Reaper Prince was playable, which leads me to believe that he's probably slightly more viable than F tier. So, therefore he gets to go C tier. He's pretty bad though.
Man, that is such a bold claim. I have only a few things in my F tier, and Reaper is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
In the world where you're already kind of writing Prince off from the beginning, he's probably okay because you give a little bit of extra damage to a brawler and maybe he kills a couple guys on the divinity before dying. But in truth, Reaper at its core takes too much work to make meaningful, doesn't hit enough times to do anything, dies to basically anything. and doesn't really play nice with anything else in the clan, quite frankly.
He does kill one guy really good though.
No, he doesn't.
He
That's the
doesn't
problem.
even
No,
do
but, like,
that.
He kind of does if you support him.
You do so much work and he kills maybe like a 70 health guy. Congratulations. Like,
Yeah, but then he kills like a 120 health guy next turn.
except that's not how the waves are organized. So it just never happens. He's so bad. I just feel like he's one of the few totally irredeemable paths. My general philosophy is if you click him, you're already writing your champion out of your run. And your champion is a resource to me. I genuinely believe that. So I try to find ways to make my champion useful. And if it ends up being trash, fine. But at least I tried, and sometimes it saves my run to do so.
Yeah, I have him F. For me personally, I have had runs where he's good, but it's I would say it's kind of like Voix, maybe 2 times. In that regard though, there's one champ path I've never had a good run with, so I still say that Reaper's better than that path, and I'll reveal that one later when we get to it. But yeah, for me, I think Reaper just like it's not a good flex typically, other than I guess sometimes with Brawler, but the survivability is a huge thing with me, but also just the starting attack. It's like in Ring 1 when you really your champ shines because you don't have any other units typically other than train stewards. Like 6 health for 2 pip is I think it's the worst health other than like Primordium, like health to pip ratio. And so you can't even get like some of these 1 pip squishy champs, you can get 2 stewards in front of him, but you can't even get 2 stewards in front of him. And then also his starting attack doesn't kill any tanks, which unless you're fighting clergymen, you're facing tanks. So like, I don't know, it's like in a run where you don't even start with a way to help him get a tank, he may not even get a slay that whole first ring. So it's just really rough.
That's a good point. I mean, the shield guys have what, like 5 health and 20 armor, so they're even
25.
And he does what, 20? So he's even not in reach of those guys. That's wild.
I thought it was 25 at start. Am I crazy?
No, it's 20, I think, isn't it?
See, this is how bad he is. We don't even.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I do not know his stat numbers offhand because I have just a rule. I will never click him.
I'm opening up the dang train. I'm checking it. Oh, I have the unofficial balance patch installed. No.
Yeah, so he's actually good in that one. Shit.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I think he's bad. Real quick, I think he's bad. I think that on average he's just going to perform worse than Wrathful in the early game, and I think he's going to perform worse than Brawler in the late game, like 98% of the time. So it does just kind of feel like by default, Reaper. If you're forced to take him, I guess he might perform a little bit better than some of the other F tier characters, but I think just merely based on the fact that you always have a better option than Reaper Prince, I feel like he just gets, forced into F tier for that reason. Like, I don't know, he's not good. But I mean, the voice, interestingly, you've been intentionally playing him. I feel like,
Yeah.
How has that been?
So the use case for Reaper Prince, there's only really one use case, and I don't think it's gonna come up very often. But you start Brawler, you make it through Daedalus, and you have. So when it happened to me, I didn't have a scale or my damage scaling plan because I had missed Endless for my Imp. So in the mid game, I took Reaper, and the base stats plus the mediocre and not very good scaling plan made it so that Reaper plus Brawler got enough damage through to start killing and keep killing, and it probably saved me like 50 to 60 HP of just stopping enemies from walking past me. And then because I was doing a challenge, I then took Reaper 2 and went, wow, this was an awful choice. But if I had gone Brawler 2, this would have been the only useful position for Reaper, because eventually you hit your scaling plan and he goes off and you get 3 multi-strike, which is okay. But yeah, he's not good. But there's like a slight case where you take him off of a weird Brawler start and he's okay. which is why I'm going to not put him in F tier.
Yeah, that's fair. According to the wiki, he is doing 25 damage on ring 1, so I think
What
he
the
should
hell?
at least...
I haven't played this game in 2 months. I'm still an expert.
Yeah. I
Who
feel
knows?
like he's got to be able to kill at least a shield guy, but in fairness, most of the front lines are 45 healthers in the early game, so I think Gabriot's point stands.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right. Gonna do Wrathful now.
Yeah.
All right. I will do Wrathful in B tier. Similar to Reaper, I really don't have a ton to say about Wrathful other than this champion does not have enough health. He's a frontliner who ends the run at 40 base HP. He dies from full health to most of the first waves on the Divinity, I'm pretty sure. It's really sad. His rage scaling is bad. His armor scaling is not good enough for the Divinity anymore. Help my brother.
Yeah, I mean, I have Wrathful in D tier myself. I don't think he's terrible necessarily, but he doesn't do the job that he's trying to do. So he just kind of falls and becomes a throwaway. He's good in the early game, so I definitely think he's considerably better than some of the worst paths in the game, but he falls off a cliff real fast, and I'll almost always replace him with literally anything. And at that point, I'm just looking for the brawler pivot to try to basically have him, I don't know, kill 2 guys and then die is my goal with him at that point in the run. And it's okay, but it's not what I'm looking for out of a champion. I agree with him being too squishy. I do genuinely believe that if he had like 60 health, he would be pretty okay as a frontline. Like pretty genuinely legit.
He is squishy. But if you've ever had a run where you've taken like 18 furnace taps, he does kind of go crazy.
True.
That's all I'm going to say about him.
Is Furnace Tap a good card? Experts are unsure.
Yeah.
They got rid of the rage on it, so I don't think
It's
so.
kind of iffy.
That's fair.
But I don't know. Yeah, what you guys are saying is true. His HP is way too low to be a tank. So he's weird. But I think that the armor generation on Slay he creates is a pretty interesting like mechanic. And if you can, if you can give him multi-strike, he can carry the run. The problem is that it's very hard to give your champions multi-strike. So, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, I put him in B just because it is the most likely path that I'm going to choose with Prince usually. It just sucks because I think rank 1 is pretty decent, but rank 2 is not, and rank 3 especially is not. Like, you're just not gaining much. Now, the thing is, though, I think similar to, maybe in the opposite direction that Voix just outlined with Reaper, like, I'll usually want to start with Wrathful, but if I can get Brawler, if I can, my ideal Prince usually is Wrathful 1 plus Brawler 2. At 3 strikes, it's self-sufficient. I think another problem I kind of have with Brawler sometimes, like full Brawler, is defense. If it's like a low roll defense run, like it often just can't work, top at least. But Wrathful flexed in with Brawler can, because it's getting kills, it's getting its armor. It has a bit of self-scaling offensively still put into it. It's still not good though. Almost certainly I'm gonna throw the champ away. But I guess for me, Wrathful ranked highest for my Prince paths, just simply because it's gonna do what I need from the champ in the first 3 rings, and it might allow me to take some Divine Hordes and whatnot, which I think are pretty useful with Hellhorn, because Hellhorn to me is kind of up there with Wormkin as like having the best artifact pool.
Yeah, I think
That's
that
fair.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Wrathful is definitely one where if you go Wrathful 3, you have to have multi-strike built into your run. Otherwise, you are worse off than Wrathful 2 Brawler 1.
Right.
Or Wrathful 1 Brawler 2. I like that idea where you just put him, like, you give him the Wrathful and let him just be Animus of Will with some self-scaling and armor.
Right.
That's cool.
The tough thing about that is he's still, because you're getting swept on top floor, before the enemies even reach your floor, he's dying unless you've given him support somehow. And at
Yeah.
that point, if you're already supporting him, I mean, it's not hard to just full support him. And then you have 5 hits and he's fully clearing waves. It just feels to me like if you have the opportunity and the ability to support Brawler and not lose the run, then it is just universally superior to any kind of Wrathful Splash. I find that the Wrathful Splash is essentially, I would rather have Horned Warrior 20 times out of 20, basically.
I was about to say Horned Warrior is just a little bit more flexible because you can, infuse and augment it and stuff like that. So I don't know.
The case for Wrathful, in my opinion, is you had the option of Wrathful or Reaper at the start of your run, and you don't get to choose. And at that point, you might just throw your champion away and let Wrathful do the early game, which is also fair.
Yep.
For sure. I also do think I want to give some credit to Gabriot's opinion that there are some starts that I think are so abysmally bad that I think you actually do risk dying with Brawler. And in those cases, I will kind of accept the loss. I'll take the L and then just take Wrathful to get me out of the early game. That way I don't lose the run, and maybe I can solve it some other way.
Yeah. I agree.
I don't think I said it. I put him in C tier, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, very important.
So my final rankings for Prince: Brawler A, which is second from the top, Wrathful B, third from the bottom, Reaper C, second from the bottom. Alright. Would we like to move on to Shardtail Queen?
I'd rather not, but freaking got him.
Yeah, true. I feel like Shardtail Queen, I liked her a lot more before the DLC, and I liked her a lot more before I did this challenge. I got Imparade here first. I'm willing to put Imparade in B tier. I think I'm going to try to keep the tiers ordered, and I will put Imparade above Wrathful. I like Imparade a little more in the DLC because the divinity kills the imps for you, and it brings to the table 20 armor per turn for your frontliner and 5 rage for your floor, and that's cool. But I feel like Imparade has inverted stats from what I would want because this champion has so much attack and no health, and she always ends up in the front of my floors, and I don't know why.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly agree with that. I wish her stats were flipped, but I find Imparade very consistent. I pretty much have a universal opinion that if I see Queen, I can win the run with any start with her. So Imparade is great. She guarantees you fledgling imps every turn, even if I hard pivot off into an Imperialist later, or I go all the way for whatever reason. Sometimes I've even pivoted into Royalty just to not have a second imp generated per turn. And the truth is, with fledgling imps every turn, you can win. She used to be really bad pre-DLC before the buff to fledgling imp, but as soon as that got pushed into 5 rage to the floor, she's winning, in my opinion. I have her in B, solid. I don't think she's the strongest path. I also don't think she's the most defining. She's sometimes awkward and annoying, but she wins runs, so.
Fair.
Yeah, I put her in B as well. It's up to you, Cranberry. You're going to be the deciding factor if we can all 100% agree on this one path.
Well, now he's definitely not going to agree. He's going to change his ranking for sure.
Also, my B is one
We know
below yours because of B+.
Oh.
I'm putting her in like C basically for you.
Ruined.
Yeah, here. Okay. So I'm
My
glad
hopes and dreams. But yeah, I didn't have much to add. I think you both nailed it. Imparade, very solid.
Okay, well, I am a known Shardtail Queen hater. I want that to be out here first. For a long time, everyone has said, "Oh, I love Shardtail Queen. She's so strong," and I've hated her guts. However, I do like Imparade. It's the one Shardtail Queen line I do like. Just because of the reliability of imps. My biggest problem with Shardtail Queen was the fact that it forced you to play an imp run basically, and if you didn't see any starting imps, you would have issues because imps were all common rare, or the good imps were common rarity imps. So if you missed them in your first 2 rings, you were pretty much screwed. So I, for a long time, didn't like Shardtail Queen in general, but I do like Imparade because it gives you that guarantee that you'll see some of those good imps. So I actually put Imparade in the B+ tier.
Ooh, okay, so I'm the odd one out here.
It does seem like it.
That's fine. Well, if you guys are ready to move on, I will tell my anecdote.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So I am going to do my best to remain reasonably impartial. However, when I did this challenge, Shardtail Queen gave me the most trouble. I will, and this is me being impartial. I'm putting Imperialist in the B+ tier. I should probably rank Imp Parade and Imperialist the same, honestly. I think they're about the same in power level. However, I think my highest loss rate champion for this challenge was Shardtail Queen, and it is because I went, I think it was 8 straight steel shops over the course of the runs without seeing an endless, which I found to be a little upsetting.
Very cool.
I did title one of the episodes "Cranberry was right" because in honor of missing so many endlesses.
I didn't know that. I need to go look at that now.
Yeah, it was one of the ones where I went like 4 steel shops and then never saw endless and went, damn, Cranberry was right about this fucking champion for Imperialist. But no, I think that Imperialist is fine. The ability to clear floors is really good. The only thing I don't like about Imperialist is she sort of clashes with like Branded Warrior and things like that because it makes it a little harder for him to get started. But you can end up doing like 120 damage to a floor if everything goes right, which is a lot of damage. So I think Imperialist is good, even if sometimes I get backstabbed. It's a me problem. I recognize it. I have to play the game differently.
It's interesting because even if you miss Endless, in my opinion, Imperialist is basically just budget Inferno on draw priority, which is really good. So, like, even if I miss Endless the whole run, she ends up not being important to my run. Throwing her away, I can toss her Queen Zimplings that she starts with behind her. Even in the worst of case, I saw no other imps in the entire run. Pretty unlikely, but if that happens, I can still toss some Queen Zimplings. She'll even kill a wave for me before going down. She's so solid. I have her in A tier because I do genuinely believe that finding the solution to playing and seeing imps over the course of a run is pretty straightforward. You've got imp in a box. You've got all sorts of stuff if you're willing to deal with, impish scholar or whatever. And I can, in the worst of cases, I'm just like, all right, well, she killed like 2 waves and my top floor is going crazy up there. So it's really hard for me to be mad about that.
Yeah, I said A tier as well. And I think both of you kind of covered most of it. I think the only thing I would add is like, she's one of those champs where she's good as an all-in and great as a flex as well. So it's like, you're almost always happy to see Imperialists show up in your champ path offerings, no matter what point in the run you're at. So I would, if I were to make an A+ tier, I'd even put her there. Just very solid, but there is that, every now and then she might not do a whole lot for you on the run if it's pretty low rolly. But I think in the average case, you're usually getting a lot out of her.
I'm about to fuck everything up here, I guess. I've already outlined my more or less value system for Imparade in that, like, I like that she gives you guaranteed imps, and for that reason, I put Imperialist in like the B, maybe even the C tier. For me, it's close.
Ooh, okay.
Listen. The ability to kill your own imps is cool, so you can play more of them. But I think Dusk might have said something before when we were talking about Imparade, but like the fact that you can just play top 4 Divinity and have Divinity kill the imps for you, I think takes a little bit of Imperialist shine away for that. And then also I am a Shardtail Queen hater. So
that's fair.
So I put Imperialist in B tier. Fuck Shardtail Queen.
It's really interesting because I find that Imp Parade actually performs best on not top floor, and the reason for that is because you can just throw the fledgling imp in front of her, and that's a solid 2 or 3 hits on the floor that never even go through to her. So I always play Imp Parade on bottom or mid pretty typically. Or, depending on what my run looks like, she sometimes can end up top, but I'm still probably chump blocking with both of the imps instead of having the sweep clear it.
Yeah, the queen is an interesting champ because she, by far out of all the champ paths, she's the one that I'm just run to run is going to do something wildly different for me. It's like sometimes she makes sense on your main floor, but a lot of times she can just have a whole floor dedicated to herself where she's not really carrying the run. She's just sitting there providing value, whether that's like some AoE or just some single target damage. It's very tough to like say what she's doing on any run until about halfway through.
Yeah, real quick circle back to Imp Parade since we're here. I do think it's worth mentioning that Imp Parade is probably the highest value generating champion in the game. If you go Imp Parade 3, you're getting 2 cards per turn. You're effectively getting 2 card draw and 2 energy because she makes those imps free. It's kind of an incredible amount of value. It really frees you up to go double space in a way that no other champion does. And then for Imperialist, I did want to mention that Imperialist killing your imps is often really nice because it gives you the guarantee of Welder Helper Infusion not sticking an imp to your floor.
Right.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
A lot of times with Imperialist, I'll do like 2 Fledgling Imps with Welder Helper Infusion. You're getting like 30 armor of chump blockers in front and 20 armor to your floor plus 10 rage, and Imperialist just sends them, and that's a crazy strong combo.
Yeah, it also lets you do some real silly things with Transcend Imp when you start doing Imp infusions, so...
Molten Encasement as well. If you put that into an imp.
Yeah.
Although I guess technically those are gonna die eventually. Because everything else will be stealth.
True. Alright, now we get to talk about the other path. I think this one, we can probably spend as much or as little time talking about how absolutely horrible Royalty is. Royalty is a hard F. There is no way this champion should be in the game.
I think it's interesting that you put Reaper in the C tier, but then this in the F tier, because they kind of have almost the same function.
Yeah,
which is a guy who hits big once, and that's sort of it.
So I can give you the 2 reasons for that. One, I went into the challenge that I did, and I was like, oh, I don't think Royalty's going to be that bad. I'm going to play Umbra Secondary. I'm going to give her like a multi-strike and a trample. It's going to be great. We're getting 40 per rally. I got to the tier 3, and I went, what do you mean it's 25 attack per rally? Or is it 20? It's so low. The damage scaling on Royalty is laughable. I think it's 25. It's so unbelievable. I still cannot understand how this champion's attack scaling is so bad. It's irredeemable. Also, the biggest downside for Royalty versus Reaper is that Reaper has the ability to go Brawler 1, where Royalty does not.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably a big part of it, huh?
Yeah, this champion should not exist. They could double her stats,
Finally.
and I think she would still be bad.
Finally, the truth comes out.
Cranberry was right. Alright, I'm done. Go on.
I think she's better than Reaper because Rally is an easier trigger to use, and she starts with imps, so you're guaranteed to get at least the 5. But and also, she has 40 hit points as opposed to Reaper's 25, which is hilarious. But
Yeah.
but she's still really bad. I find that the only time I use Royalty, which I do have in F tier as well, by the way, is when I specifically have Imp Parade 2 and I do not want a 3rd imp, no matter, like that extra imp, no matter what. For some reason, like I can't play it, it's going to take up too much space, I needed to take something else. Like there's some reason in my run where I cannot get that 2nd imp from her, or it's going to flood my deck with unplayable cards. That's the opportunity where I take Rally, specifically just to avoid the downside otherwise. And obviously I would prefer Imperialist, but sometimes you're not shown it. That's it. That's the only opportunity for Royalty in any run I ever play. Otherwise, I relegate her to the tier of you want to lose a run if you click this. Like, that's fully it.
Yeah. I did win a run with Royalty 3, I'm pretty sure, so it was not good.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I can also win runs without taking a champion upgrade at all. So, like, that doesn't really necessarily give her any credits.
And I'm pretty sure Royalty 3 was my carry.
That sounds awful. You're
It
gonna have to
wasn't.
link that one to me later.
Was it like Umbra secondary and you gave her
Okay.
trample or something?
Oh yeah, it was Umbra secondary.
Okay.
Okay, I could see that then. If you just high roll into the Umbra Stone and survive all the other parts of the run.
Yeah. It wasn't good, but it was we got there.
I actually had her in the D tier.
What the heck?
I want to hear this.
I'm
What
listening.
the heck?
So I think it's similar to like Infector for me. There's never any realistic reason to take it because the other two paths are that much better. But I've kind of done a I've done a similar exercise as Voix where I'll force myself to do the paths, and I guess when I did that, the stuff I have in F just seemed to have a much rougher time than Royalty. I guess it's hard to like say exactly why, I guess, but I think there's just a little bit more in the Hellhorn kit that supports Royalty compared to like Reaper. You know, if I think it's also something you could flex with Imperialist to make it a little bit better. Like the first like 10 attack is probably the best value point. The second point only gives 15. It only brings it up to 15 attack, and then eventually 25. But I guess there's just a, you know, you can find One Horn Tome and Welder Helper. One Horn Tome's in about 40% of your Hellhorn runs, and Welder Helper is going to be in like 60% or something. So like, it wasn't that out of the question for me to just have a situation where I had a Welder Helper giving her a bunch of armor, and then I just give it multi-strike, and she can actually be okay, and it's not like that. It's not consistently going to happen, but if I'm forced to use the champ, it'll happen a decent amount of the time. And I guess if I compare that to Reaper, that same exact scenario, it's like, you know, the Welder Helper doesn't sort of die on its own other than against Divinity, and I also still don't get even though the rally is less scaling than Slay, it's just easier for me to get it. And sometimes depending on the secondary, like I might, if I'm doing like true random, I might get stuck with like Drag secondary, and it's actually okay in that scenario, just to spam a few Drags out and get a free set of rallies, but it's definitely not a good path. I guess it's never been as miserable for me as like Reaper or a few of the other ones that I'm going to put in my F tier. I would never say it's a good path, but I do think she's like somewhat usable some of the time, more times than in my F tier champs.
All I'll say is that you compared her to Infector, and I'm looking at the massive gulf in tier rankings between those two on my sheet, and I'm like, wow.
I think his logic is sound, though. I think he makes a good point in saying that, like, Infector there's usually no reason to take it over the other two.
Right.
So that logic is sound, but I think you're insane for saying they're the same.
Yeah, like I definitely rank Infector higher, but yeah, it's mainly just the point of like,
yeah,
if I'm tryharding, I would just never take either of those paths.
That's crazy. I actually feel we'll get to Infector when we get there, but I do think there are starts where I will pick Infector over the others and feel way stronger for it. So I'll have to explain that when we get there.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, Royalty dog shit. F tier.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
I think that, yeah, it's just going to come down to personal experience a little bit on your champion choices for who you put in the F tier. I'm saving the F tier for two specific paths, but we'll get there when we get there. One of them is Royalty, though. My feeling is that, for me, like Dusk said, if you're picking Royalty, it's just, oh man, you're not, like, she's not going to be doing much in your run. But we should move on now, because we should finish this video before Cranberry has to go.
Even if I have to leave early, you know, we got to this, and I'm just glad we got to really dunk on Shardtail Queen finally.
Finally.
Years.
Oh, I think Dusk was mostly positive, but you know what? I have Bristling next, which is Spike Sentient, and I think that Bristling Sentient, she is like, it's close. I'm gonna put her B tier, like right below Imp Parade. My only real complaint, she's fine. She could even go B plus. Yeah, I'm gonna put her B plus actually. She goes B plus. She's fine. I really don't feel like there's a ton to say about this champion. It's a set it and forget it. The Sentient in general is not a carry. The Sentient is just in your run usually.
Yeah, I mean, I have her in C tier. She's fine. She does an okay job. She's kind of weak early, kind of okay later. I think she really shines if you can find a way to get Endless on her. I think if I see Remnant Pact or, Immortality Potion, I'm cruising, because she's basically Hot Shark on steroids at that point.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get Endless on her, so it's kind of whatever. But yeah, I have her at C tier.
Yeah, I did C as well. I've never been super into Bristling. I feel like there's just not much of a ceiling there. And even the floor, I think, isn't necessarily great. Like, 1 out of 4 times you're going to face Chased, for example, and she'll be just useless in that fight. So you better, I guess, hope that Cultivate was offered. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's just solid. I think for me, it's at its best if I can find a Unleash the Wildwood, because then I can just basically keep her alive the whole fight and continue clearing waves on her own floor. But yeah, I've never been that super into Bristling.
I put her in my B tier. I think Bristling's fine. It's okay. Yeah, I think you guys are right. I think actually a pretty decently high floor, but a really low ceiling. Right? Bristling doesn't carry your run, but it is like it performs like a Hot Shark. You just put it at the bottom floor. You do whatever you're doing normally on the top floor, and it'll kill a bunch of the curse units for you, so you don't have to worry about that until it eventually dies. And that's more than like a decent number of champions do in the late game. So I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna move her down to B because I've thought about it a little more. I'm gonna put her top of B instead of bottom of B plus. It's really, really close. But yeah, I think it's also worth mentioning she loses pretty hard to Patient Seraph. She gets absolutely sent. And my biggest complaint about Bristling is that she clashes with Shattered Shell, and you can't know if you're gonna see Shattered Shell in your run until after you've picked her. But yeah, I mean, there's not a ton to say about this character. You just set it and forget it pretty much. Anyone else, or we can just move on?
Nothing else.
I think that's it. Yeah.
That's good.
Boring champion.
Yeah, honestly. Cultivating, I'll put her B plus for Cultivating. I think Cultivating is probably moved up to B plus instead of B for me just because of the +1 draw. This champion is also fine. You set it with your champion. You set it with your carry. It's a very good front line. It gives you some free scaling. Don't take quick with it. The YouTube comments will get very mad at me.
Yeah, I mean, basically, draw is good. I have her in B as well. She's the strongest Sentient, in my opinion. Weak, really weak early on. A very big struggle getting through Daedalus or something with Cultivating. But if you can pull it off, she pays off big late game. And yeah, I think she's solid. The Cultivate is obviously nice, but it's never going to be enough to carry your run on its own. So you may as well just play into stronger scaling lines. It's nice having the health scaling baked in, though. I'll say that. Because she can get hit 12 times, and then your backline is healing more than the sweep from the divinity is dealing. And that's pretty cool. But otherwise, I like drawing cards, and so she's pretty good. It's a great example of, actually, not to spend too much time on it, but if you had Wildwood Custodian with good stats, that guy, and draw priority, guy would actually be super solid. So
yeah. I think you're right.
Yeah, I put her in B tier. She's as well as just the most desirable typically of the paths to me. It can be okay as a flex as well, but I really like it if you can get all 3 points into her, because she actually has quite a lot of health at that point, and even if you don't use her on your main floor, I'd say maybe only 40% of the time I end up putting her on my main floor. You can just stick her off the floor, and you don't even have to heal her. even against like divinity, she'll survive for like most of the relevant portions of the fight and give you an extra draw and a little bit of extra damage. Just very solid, but similar to Spike's, still not a huge ceiling. But and you know, there are every now and then she can give enough scaling that a very weak scaling offering supplemented with it can work. But it's it's a rough run if you're having to rely on her for your scaling.
You heard it here first. Gabriot said cultivating plus sharpen is enough scaling.
I mean, yeah.
You know what? You're right, though. The one thing that you said that really stood out to me that's true is if you throw cultivating on her own floor, she actually kills heavies on her own and gets up to like 300 HP. And it makes you wonder, like, you compare that to like Reaper or something, and you're like, she's got 300 health and just kills like a harvest enemy or something. That's pretty legit, actually.
Yeah. And you're getting extra draw every turn. It's pretty nice.
Did I say anything at all?
No, you have to.
There's nothing left. There's nothing left to say, really. You guys covered it all.
Where are you putting her?
What's that?
Where are you putting her?
For me, B+. We gotta like centralize our tier listing because I'm getting my mind's breaking every
Cranberry,
time.
You wanna move ours to theirs?
Yeah, I think we should just go A, B,
That's
C,
fine.
D, E, F, G.
That is fine with me.
I'm losing my damn mind.
Yeah, no problem. So now mine are S, A, B, C, D, F, as it was before.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I don't mind.
I put cultivating in the B tier then. By the way.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Same. I think we're all in agreement on cultivating. Best sentient path.
Yeah, best sentient path. Just overall good. Not bad. Happy to see. Pog.
Remember when this champion gave 3 card draw?
Yeah, but no cultivating though.
No, there was a brief period where it was cultivating and 3 card draw.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah. It was broken.
It was
That's crazy.
It was unbelievably strong. It was like S tier, S++.
Turns out drawing volatile
that.
gauge on your champion is good.
Yeah.
Alright. I'm gonna do explosive now. Explosive is going at the top of D tier for me. I hate this champion. I truly hate this champion, but I think she's better than Reaper. I don't like it. The damage is low, her health is low. It's crazy that my frontliner only ends up at like 100 HP. That's not good enough for the divinity. Explosive makes me angry, and I don't want it. But I don't think it's as bad as some of the other paths. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's terrible. It says how bad I feel that the F tier paths are that I put explosive in D because this really is a terrible champion. I never click it. Absolutely never. There's no opportunity for it to be useful whatsoever. But I still genuinely believe if I'm forced by some horrendous twist of fate to take it, I would rather have explosive than Reaper or Royalty, for example, by just so wide a margin that there has to be a tier between them.
Yep, I agree.
I think the problem with explosive is that it's trying to make Sentient your carry in a clan that already has like a bunch of great carry units. You have like really good sweeper units. You have Animus of Will, and then even for this, this whole like restoring strategy, you have which you don't see all the time, but you have the big steel man. You even have Awoken Hollow kind of and Thorn Hollow, oh baby. So I don't know. Like I feel like I feel like explosive is just a little too weak for what the clan already gives you, and you're just better off with one of the other two sentients because they, even if they're not like incredibly strong, they're pretty good at the one thing they're good at doing. So, I think you oftentimes just want the guaranteed value out of your other champion paths.
Yeah, I will say it wouldn't take much for me to feel that explosive's pretty decent. I think if she had some baked in regen, so she was guaranteed to proc every turn, I might be good with that. A little more HP could be okay. Having a little bit of offense in your tank would be good, honestly. I mean, it's the reason why spikes can sometimes be a good path, but the problem is just the lack of health, the lack of consistency on the offense. Like, there's no payout for the penalty you take.
Put her in D as well. I think the only thing I would add, I would say I think that she is somewhat enticing with Wormkin. I think a lot another problem I guess with her is like to really go all in on explosive. You can't even clear the whole divinity waves with her. I think she was a lot better pre-DLC because you could actually clear anything pre-DLC if you just went all in on explosive for the most part. But because you can't do that, you're dedicating almost all of your hand to explosive if you are like going all in on explosive. And I guess what Wormkin and to some extent Stygian, but I think Wormkin has a bit more going for it. It just allows you to do that and still scale your floor. So like for instance, you could just have like a sweeper with a shard tail or a shard soul carver infusion, and that could just be your floor. Just that's your backliner. Then you have explosive in front, and you just spam restores and anything else. Hopefully you can get other pink heals, and that's actually a pretty smooth run. I've done that quite a number of times. So I think there is like a one clan, maybe two, that work well with it, but I would say if it's not Wormkin or Stygian, I'll pretty much never go explosive. I think it's just you're dedicating too much to try to make that champ path work, or alternatively you're banning it and it gives you absolutely zero value.
Yeah.
My only problem with that philosophy is that I feel like you're probably better off going cultivating instead for that strategy because you get the extra card draw. You're trying to like, a spell sling. I get that like the explosive converts your healing into extra damage, which is pretty cool, especially if you're in a run where you don't need your healing that much. But like I feel like most times I'd rather just have an extra card. So I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a weird one.
I was gonna say what Cranberry said. Honestly, in both cases, I would rather have the other path. Like even bristling, because in Wormkin, bristling is a great start to start going crazy with like Symphony of a Soul nonsense. So I would take either other path in those clans, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Fair.
No, part of what I feel is that, and for ranking these and going forward as well, I feel like one of the things I care about is like personal enjoyment of the game now. And so having the variety is cool. I'm going to try that explosive run you outlined, Gabriot, because that's a cool idea that I haven't thought of. And so doing something different is fun. And so explosive gets spared of my F tier wrath because I feel like F tier is reserved for champions where no matter what I do, I'm just not going to have fun when I pick this champion path, even if everything goes right as I want it to, which is why I'm keeping my F tier a little more barren than you guys may end up.
One thing that's important to note, I guess, about explosive is that it's not terrible in the early game. Correct me if I'm wrong, because again, it's been a while. It's 25 damage per trigger, right?
It's 20.
20? Oh god, never mind. Actually
I
bad.
think it's 20, 40, 60. My real problem is that 60, she got left behind by the DLC. And Infused Heavy, it takes like 5 heals to kill now, where before it was 4 or 3.
And there's like so many of them stacked in a floor.
Still not terrible in the early game though. I feel like
No,
she can
okay.
she can get a couple of kills that cultivating wouldn't give you. So if you have a really weak early game, you might want to take explosive over cultivating. But even then, I don't think that's really. I think you could usually get by with cultivating still. So I don't know.
Something worth noting is I feel like what you said there, if they go up by like 5 and double it from there, like 25, 50, 75, I think she's a lot better because it moves her thresholds forward 1.
Yeah.
It's actually fun. I spent some time in the unofficial balance patch exploring, tweaking her numbers. It doesn't take much to have her be so powerful she can solo a run. And that's actually a really interesting thing that I learned while working on her balance.
Yeah, I can imagine. A few numbers and she's suddenly wiping whole floors. Ooh, what if
Right,
explosive?
exactly.
What if explosive, instead of doing 20 to the front, was like 10 to all?
Oh, it would be sick. I would be clicking that so fast.
There'd be no reason to take bristling anymore. Bristling
that-
would just be obsoleted.
Yeah, it would be kind of busted.
I would love that. It would be so strong.
Final thing I want to say about the Sentient, and we kind of implied this with the other ones, but the Sentient is the first champion that I think it's worth mentioning outright. I think this champion is terrible to multipath. I think you always 3 whatever path you're doing.
Generally agree. Sometimes my backline is really weak walking into ring 7 and I'll take a single spikes pick, but that's about
Yeah.
it.
No, I've had that as well. I think that's the only case is like start cultivating. Or no, I think what I've had is I've had start spikes and then pick a shattered shell as my carry and then go, oh well, and then just grab cultivating and throw it out for the damage or for the draw.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes you take the if you're not using your sentient at all, you take the one dip in cultivating, and then you just pretend it doesn't exist and gives you a little bit extra card draw, and then it dies.
All right, shall we?
We should.
No, let's actually end the video here.
All right, well that's it.
Yeah, that's it. It's
Thanks
over.
for coming, guys. We're done now. All right, we can. Let's do. I got Predator up first. My personal bias is going to come in here a little bit. I strongly do not like Wendleton. I think he's to play my least favorite champion right now. He's just I'll just outline this in general here because I'm going to say this for almost every path except for Strangler. This champion is too big for too little health. 3 space and then Predator ends at like 30 HP is offensive, especially in the clan where your frontliners are the hollows who can't be healed because you have root seeds. It really just makes me mad that Wendleton is the way he is because he feels so like just unwieldy. He's not even bad, he's just unfun to play to me. All that being said, I'm going to put Predator in the B tier. And there's a caveat to all of this, which I'll talk about when we get to Strangler. I'm going to put him between Imperialist and Cultivating for me.
Yeah, full. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think on average, I might rank Wendleton a little bit higher than most people. I think that's also bias. I feel like I've had pretty cool runs with Wendleton in the past, but I think that him being 3 space is obviously a big oof. But Predator is it's a pretty unique ability to give all your units quick. It's kind of cool. And I think Predator, I guess, that's useful utility, and that's kind of the only thing he does for you. He obviously can't tank, but he can in times like carry the run for you too if you can take the 1 dip in Strangler. So I don't know. I put Predator in B tier too. I think it's the best Wendleton. I think it's the real. I think the problem with Wendleton, actually, now that I'm thinking about it more, I think that like Predator is required for Wendleton to be good, and I think it forces you to build around that ability. Because if you don't build around it, your Wendleton ends up being like horrible. So I don't know.
Yeah, I have all Wendletons in B tier myself, and it's hard to discuss one path without talking about the others to some extent, because I feel like some of his abilities are so strong that they were forced to balance his stats so low and to make him so awkward. I have him here because he's such a risky champion. He has low stats, he takes up a lot of space, you might see pieces of your run that simply don't jive with him, the hollows, things like that. Your frontline options for a Predator all-in are very slim. Thornlord is pretty squishy, despite the obvious benefits. Incant doesn't naturally synergize with Awoken if you don't also have Stygian. And there's just a lot of parts of it that compete with the clan's core principles. And as a result, your run is very risky. You might miss the things you need to make him win, but if you see them, then you have, a multi-striking, sweeping unit with quick that locks down mini bosses and crunches everything. So it's really strong, but also really weak. And as a result of that volatility, I have him square in the middle for me, pretty much. B tier all across the board.
I had for me, I put Predator at C tier, and the other 2 paths at B. I think for me, Predator was a little less enticing to me than the other paths, simply because I don't really care about the enchant effect almost ever. I would only really like Predator as a flex with Strangler, specifically for Wendleton itself. But when I think of Awoken, I'm like, this is a clan that has a quick tome, it has an Animus of speed infusion. I am rarely needing a speed enchantment, and also like um it, the floor wide ability portion of it, like Awoken is also to me just the clan that arguably least benefits from like a wide floor. They usually want to build tall in my experience, and like on top of that, it takes up 3 pips. So like I just never really find the actual enchantment to be that useful to me. And then also as a ring 1, I typically find I'm just going to get more out of Thornlord or Strangler. So to me, I felt it was deserving of just a little bit lower than the other 2 paths. But all that being said, it's the thing I would want to see if I do start Strangler. So like in that regard, it's like I would want it way more than Thornlord if I could, but I don't know. I think I just don't really respect the actual enchantment portion of it.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I agree. It's kind of like a design fail in a sense. Like it doesn't play nice with a lot of the other parts of the clan. It's redundant in a lot of ways, and then you look at something like Spine Chief's base stats and you compare it for 3 space to Windleton, and you're just like, what happened here, Shiny Shoe?
What happened?
Mega crit, please.
Mega crit,
Yeah.
fix jawworm.
Seriously.
One thing I think is kind of interesting I want to touch on is I kind of look at it from like a different perspective in regards to like the Predator Strangler thing, where you're thinking of taking a 1 dip into Predator for quick on your sweeper. For me, I think about it more of taking 2 Predator and taking the 1 dip into Strangler for a sweep. And I guess from that perspective, having like Predator as a sort of Husk Hermit that already has a multi-strike and quick on it, now getting sweep or whatever is like, I feel like a little bit more enticing for me. But I don't know. I think the thing that shouldn't be overlooked is taking Predator 2 to give it multi-strike and letting Windleton actually be the carry on your run instead of just kind of a supporting unit. But
Oh yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I think that's what I meant to essentially say. I was like, Predator, if I have Strangler, then Predator becomes like the enticing thing, because then you can ideally get multi-strike with it. But then like if I'm just Predator, then I guess it's just if I can't find a sweep with it, then I guess that multi-strike's a little less enticing.
Yeah. After hearing you guys talk, I have decided we should just rank Predator, or we should rank Wendleton all together, going path by path for this champion. Of all of the champions in the game, he is the most reliant on multipathing. However, I actually feel like it is as Dusk said, a bit of a design fail that he's even reliant on multipathing, because Strangler 1 is unbelievably powerful, and Strangler 2 and 3 are the worst upgrades to any champion in the game. It is laughable. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go through here. I'm gonna put Strangler. I'm gonna be a little bit of a deviant from the path here. I'm putting Strangler in S tier, and I'm putting Thornlord in C tier. Now, basically,
what is this guy doing?
I think Strangler is one of the strongest champion paths in the game, because Strangler is a champion that says, if you keep me alive, this run is over. It literally kills everything, even just baseline. If you have enough survivability, Strangler will win you the game. I think it's so much so that you can make a flowchart of how you should path through your run based on which unit or which champion path you see. It's pick Strangler in your first choice. If you don't see that, pick Predator. In your second choice, pick Strangler if you see it, otherwise pick Predator. In your third choice, pick Strangler and pray. And then if you do see Strangler, it's pick Strangler first, and then pick Predator or Thornlord second. Oh, and sometimes instead it's hold off, take Strangler 2, and wait for Predator, but then if you get a quick tome, it's just take Thornlord. But like, it really comes down to the fact that I think you put any defensive scaling in front of Strangler and he wins you the run, and it makes me mad. I hate this champion. I really hate this champion, but I think he's very strong when you get the Strangler setup correct.
Yeah, that's fair. It's kind of interesting to me thinking about this from like a individual path, because Strangler is pretty strong, but with absolutely no scaling, it falls behind really hard. And if you just rely on defensive scaling, you overstack the enemy floors and they walk by you. So it's tough. I just don't know if I think it's as strong as some of the other S tier paths in the game, but that's a fair take.
Yeah. The last thing I'll say is that I think the worst clan to pair with Strangler is Stygian because there's no inherent scaling, and I think that even still, you have the baseline Root Siege, which can give you enough to at least kill the backliners, and you usually won't fall behind that much, but you can. You're not wrong.
Yeah, I could agree with like Strangler is like the ceiling is very strong, and it's very often you'll hit sorry, you'll hit that ceiling. I think, and I have, I've kind of gone back and forth a lot with Strangler, like, and it has been like S and A for me at various points. I think right now, my usual MO of like just most runs, similar like Prince for me. I just don't want the stat line that Windleton gives me for 3 pip. Just so often, I'd rather just use like 2 banner units on that floor instead of him. I think the downside of Strangler there is that I can't like use it as a throwaway. Is what leaves it in the B tier for me.
That's fair.
I don't know what's happening. I thought I was going to come in here being the most positive about about Windleton, and everyone's like putting it in S tier or whatever. I'm losing my mind. I think Strangler is pretty good, obviously, as well, but I personally worry about the thing Dusk mentioned about you not having enough scaling and then having these heavies just clog up your floor and people walking past. So I don't value it as highly as like the S tiers. I think I'm putting it in B tier for now. And if we're talking about all of them, I guess we can move on to Thornlord here too. I don't know.
I mean, we could just
Like,
not talk
I-
about him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Predator and Strangler are the ones talked about together, and then Thornlord's kind of just doing his own thing, I guess.
Reserve Thorns.
Yeah, it makes Thorns good, kind of good with Stygian, but I think Thornlord is kind of a stinker in general.
Oh, yeah.
I put a Thornlord in the D tier. I don't like him. I don't trust him.
Explain to me why this champion has so low HP. Why does Thornlord not have health? Make him a frontliner.
Why does he have incant?
Why does he have incant? Why is he? Thornlord's
Why not
so
like?
weird.
Why not like a I don't know. Why not like a restore, like a rejuvenate trigger or something? I know he doesn't have restores in the starting deck, but like, why incant? It's just weird. It's just maybe make Root Seeds heal 1, and then give it a rejuvenate trigger instead.
Dusk, didn't you do that in the balance patch and it was broken?
Yeah, I mean, in the Strangler in the balance patch has a slay trigger to gain regen, which in the higher ranks, which is a lot stronger, honestly. I mean, it feels good and it actually feels justifiable to make him tanky. He kills things and then gains tankability out of it. And of course, his stats are actually reasonable as well. So, but yeah, I didn't really touch other paths that much because I actually genuinely believe Thornlord's pretty good. In a lot of cases, I feel like it's a better standalone champion than Predator Strangler, kind of funny enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, Predator and Strangler, their strength comes in the fact that you can take them both together.
Right, exactly. Yeah. That's absolutely it. Whereas, I mean, Thornlord is a very consistent, if mediocre, choice. I can always get it to a reasonable amount. The stings accelerate me through my deck, and it's honestly okay. It's better than the other paths if I'm completely throwing Windleton away, in my opinion. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the main enticing thing to me is that it's one of the best throwaway paths in my opinion because
it's not a good thing.
Well, I think
no, it is an okay thing, but I'm just saying, like, the concept, it is interesting where Monster Train is because of infusions and stuff, right? Where your champions get highly devalued by this, but it is just funny to be like, yeah, this champion's really good if you just throw them away and pretend they don't exist anymore.
Well,
But you're right. It is a good one for that. The 3 stings for free if you just pretend your champion doesn't exist are better than most of the other characters who you don't want in your run.
Right. Because I mean, it's like you're basically getting a full hand the second turn, depending on what your other sort of draw setup is, and I don't know. I just find the turns like 1, 2, and 3 are often the most determining turns of whether you're going to win that fight or not. And and I think it is like a pretty good thing just to have that guaranteed big draw on turn 2. Granted, you might be Ember drained, but still just having the choices is pretty nice. And I think it can be used on your main floor. If you go all in on Thornlord, it does technically have, even though it's not enough health, it is technically the highest health of the Windleton paths, and it will scale to a serviceable point. It will never be like very great, but it could kill a heavy, which is something.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say about Thornlord. It's in the game. I think that, I guess I'll say, I think that you can use it as a frontliner, which is more than you can say for the other two. He's not as, hardcore into the just keep me alive and I win the run strategy as Strangler and Predator are. So, I don't know, man. We should move on. I just want to say, oh, God, I hate this champion so much. I really do not understand what the hell went wrong. Why is he like this? I don't want to alarm you guys. However, we only have an hour before Cranberry has to go, so
that is true. We should go a little bit faster, maybe.
We can speed run. We're on Tethys, so it shouldn't take too long here.
Yeah.
I'm actually down if you guys want to do all of Tethys together as well, because my opinion on Tethys is pretty much the same across the board. So I'm gonna give Tethys
all B tier.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Conduit C tier, and I'm gonna give the other two D tier. I don't think Tethys is unplayable, but Chillwind and Handheld Totem feel like you go through a whole bunch of hoops to get what is effectively no value. Conduit does something.
I'm sick of this guy always sticking up for Tethys, man.
Look, the only reason Tethys isn't going in F tier is because of Royalty Queen and the mystery other guest.
I guess that's fair. I have sort of like one tier lower for all of mine. I put Conduit in D tier and the other two in F tier, and I'm not gonna pretend like I like Tethys.
No, me neither.
I hate Tethys. I hate Tethys. Ugh.
Chillwind has 6 HP, and that's the buffed version.
It's messed up, man.
It really is.
It's a messed up. It just wasn't designed with Divinity in mind.
No.
It's really as simple as that. The character is way too low HP, too hard to protect for too little value. Conduit kind of is there, where it's oh, if you protect me, I do something really cool for you. The other two though, what the fuck is the point?
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it so much. I don't like seeing Tethys. I would prefer on average for Tethys to be removable from my deck. That's simple as that.
That would be nice.
Yeah, if I could remove Tethys like a train steward, I would.
Yeah.
I will say my last piece here, and then I will yield the floor. Handheld Totem, and just by extension, sorry, Icy Siliphyte, you're catching a stray in this one. Any of the strike spell weakness cards do not make sense in this game anymore. It's so hard to make this champion make sense to me because, I think that Handheld Totem would be better if you got around to play spells in the Pyre or something like that, but there's just never a time where I feel like, oh, well, I can sneak my spells in here, and the damage output's bad, Tethys has no HP, she got left behind in the Divinity, everything kills her now. I'm done.
It's interesting because I think Tethys is still the worst champion in the game, but none of her paths hit the F tier for me either.
Yep.
I actually rank Chillwind above the other two simply because if you can keep her alive, she auto wins Relentless basically in every boss fight. I think that the Chillwind is just such a huge power swing. The big thing is if she had 10 more life, I would consider Chillwind one of the better paths in the game, but she doesn't. And she's a challenge, but yeah, I do think Chillwind is good. It's great getting 40 Frostbite. That just stacks so fast. If you see Handheld Totem and you go, dang, I really would like it if I could kill the whole floor, that's good. If she hits everyone and then you do stuff like ascend things to the pyre or whatever, or lodestone totem them, then they really just get crunched to nothing by the pyre real quickly with the frostbite. She's close to being really good, and just exactly as you said, falls behind in the DLC. She needed more hit points is basically it. And yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much it, really. I think I have Chillwind at C and the other two at D, honestly. Conduit is like genuinely, I feel like people are going to get mad at me if I just leave it at that. Conduit's good in quotation marks. It has the hallmarks of being valuable. It allows you to take high cost, high value cards and then play a bunch of them and take card draw from your boss relics instead of Ember. You can load them up with plus 30s and 10 in piercings and do some real crazy stuff. But then, if she dies and you can't get her back, all of those cards are now dead in your deck. And the other problem is, what if you need to play those cards on a different floor? You don't have the Ember for it, so you either have to invest in those things anyway, or just Unga play card on her floor and hope it's enough. So it's risky from a draw order perspective, because you might not see your answer to keep her alive, you might not see the cards on the right turns where you're spending your plus 30, 10 in piercing ancient synergy into the mini boss or whatever. There's just a lot that can go wrong, and it takes so much work to get her past the point where, okay, I feel confident that I can keep her alive. Stuff like intrinsic and then insert solution here. So I don't like Tethys. She's tough, and that's it.
I have a question I'd like to interject with real quick. Would Tethys be broken if the divinity did not have the remove debuff ability thing? Purify, I think is what it's called, right?
Yeah, Purify. She would be pretty strong.
Would she be broken though?
I mean, the thing that would be really way too broken is like Hot Shark would be out of control. I mean,
would it really be
600 frostbite and wave 3 pretty consistently? I think that's insta winning. You could just end turn to victory almost.
I guess so.
The way I always say it is they put that Purify in the game for two things: Cold Channel and Reap Chef.
Yeah, I
Those
guess.
are
That
the
is
two
actually
things.
true.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything else is manageable
Frost
for the
efficiency.
game, but Cold Channel would just actually kill
Yeah.
the divinity on turn 3.
Here's how Tethys can still win. I figured it out.
Okay.
You give Tethys a unique perk called Super Chilly Cold, where
Mhm.
she has a specific frostbite perk she applies separately from anything else that cannot be removed by Purify. There you go. I solved the game. I
And
fixed it.
then you give her 10 more HP.
Yeah, that too. But I just think that she would just make so much more sense if she could actually like deal significant damage over time to divinity. Like you could, I don't know. I don't get it. I don't get this character. Gabriel, you have anything you wanted to add here? I don't know if you got a chance to get your digs in.
Yeah, no, I'll be hopefully super quick here. I put Conduit C, Chillwind D, and Handheld I had as F. Still better than Reaper, I think, but not too distinguishable in my opinion. I guess the reason I have those rankings, I would actually have Conduit in probably A or S if it weren't specifically for to me it's the worst ring 1 of any champ in the game, and there are some abysmal starts where I would argue she's untakeable.
Yeah.
And it's just so bad. But they all three have the same problem of health. So you either can or can't go top. I don't think the little differences in the HP that each path gives will change much there. Maybe it could sometimes, but so they all share that problem. And I think what distinguishes me is that Conduit just has an actual ceiling that is pretty attainable compared to the other two, which puts it in C for me. But definitely the best ring 1 is Chillwind typically. That's why I think I think there's a few reasons I put Chillwind above the sweeping version is because beyond just the first rings typically being better, it also has the flexibility if it's a run where I can put Tethys in the top to go top, whereas like the sweeping version really doesn't make sense to go top unless you're specifically only using it as a sweeper. Usually you'd want to go mid or bottom with the sweeping version to cash in on the spell weakness, but then, you know, as we've kind of discussed on Divinity, since Relentless works different than every other boss in the game, you can't actually typically cash in on that spell weakness. You definitely won't cash in on the Relentless portion of it. And a lot of times, even with the tanks that come in and add spell shield, like sometimes you can't even cash in on the normal spell weakness that you're getting wave to wave. So I just find the sweeping version really suffers even more so than Chill Wind, because you know, Chill Wind, you know, let's say we go bottom or mid with it because we can't go top, at least I'm still getting some value out of it, whereas the sweeping version, it also now has the added downside of, like, if I can't kill both those spike channelers before they reach the bottom or mid floor, I'm just gonna die because I'm a sweeper that has like 10 health, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me the sweeper path is the worst of the paths, but yeah, I guess that's about all I have to say on Tethys.
Yeah, important thing you mentioned about handheld totem. She literally can't kill the divinity. You don't get the chance. It's like unbelievable to me.
Yeah, it's so sad because it's like, honestly, like when I do a handheld run, it trolls me into thinking it will be good because it's pretty strong up until divinity.
Yeah.
Like you'll crush the run usually, but then, and maybe there's something to be said for that. Maybe the fact that it can crush the whole run, and if you just consign yourself to the fact that it will do literally nothing for you to divinity, maybe it still has a place, but it's hard for me to justify it still, because it's like divinity is often going to be the hardest fight. So
just take 95 shards. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, there you go.
Just don't go to the divinity. End the run there.
Yeah, it still counts as a win.
Right.
Yeah. Tethys sucks.
Yeah.
She and Prince are the biggest example of, man, I wish this game got like 2 more balance passes.
Yeah.
They got left behind. It's a shame, but that's okay. I kind of like doing these in batches. However, I think we should do Solgard one at a time.
Yeah.
I'm going to start us off here with... Well, mine has Dire Channel at the front. However, I'm going to start us off with Cold Channel. I think that Cold Channel is very contextually good. Sometimes you can keep... If you can keep Cold Channel alive, he wins you the run. That's just how it is. So, he's good with almost every clan except for Umbra, I feel. Because Stygian doesn't really have a good native way to let him live. But even still, he's just do Frostbite on the first few turns. So, I don't think he's great. I think he's just pretty good. I will put him at the top of B tier.
I like Cold Channel because even in the worst of cases, he kills a couple waves on the divinity, and that's fine with me. I mean, and when I say kill, I mean he just outright kills them. It's kind of as good as Imperialist in that respect, but he can, like you said, just win the run if you lean into him and have the ability to do it. There are certain clan combos, and admittedly there are a number of them, right? Like Wormkin, Awoken, heck, Hellhorned because of armor. Like that's 3 out of 5 where I immediately go, all right, cool, I can win with Cold Channel. And if it doesn't pan out, I'm good because I just throw him away and he kills 2 floors and that's it. So I think he's good. I got him at B tier. I think he's a genuinely good path that is just hard for people to play because of how flimsy he is. You have to do weird things with tanking. Sometimes into Daedalus, you have backline Cold Channel and you just leak a whole bunch of waves just so that Cold Channel hits like Daedalus or whatever and does like 300 Frostbite or whatever it is. So he's hard to play. And I think that makes people like him less on average. A lot of like my YouTube comments and things constantly are like, how do I win with Cold Channel? Because they see me succeed and they're like, well, what the heck? What am I doing wrong? And a lot of it's about the tactics of the run and just identifying where the weaknesses in a specific combat are and how much you need him for a particular boss, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a cold channel lover. I think there was a point probably early on in the DLC where the general sentiment was that cold channel got like gutted from the DLC, but I think that at least for me, slowly and slowly over time, just kind of reversed. Like I think cold channel is, I put it at the top of A tier. I just think that there are some runs where he's not going to work for you, but it turns out I think in most runs it will actually just carry, and even if it doesn't have the really it's just divinity. Divinity is the question. Nothing much has massively changed. It was pre-DLC arguably the best Solgard path. Now I think I put Titan Channel as better, but it really just comes down to can you make it work in Divinity with all that incoming damage, and usually you can. You just have to prepare accordingly.
I don't know. This one I'm probably more torn on than any other champion ranking. It's either B or C tier, and I think I think it is that you mentioned it before, Gabriot, that like people thought that Cold Channel got gutted post DLC. I wouldn't go that far, but I think it is important to note how enemies being infused increased the overall damage Cold Channel was seeing in the early game. And if you didn't have any support to make Cold Channel stronger, depending on whatever clans you had, it'd be very easy for Cold Channel to die if you're using it as a tank before you got to even just like the not even like Daedalus, like just like the ring 1 and 2 bosses. So I don't know. I guess I was gonna put it in C, but I think I can be convinced of B tier for it. But it's not bad. Not a bad guy, but it's a weird one.
I would like to say Cold Channel does get the honor. He gets to share the honor, as we said earlier, of adding a keyword to the game to deal with him, which is fun.
That's true.
Without Purify, he would trivialize the divinity. Absolutely. Right. Yeah, no, Cold Channel's good. I'm gonna do Titan Channel next, unless you guys have anything else. Alright. Titan Channel goes in A tier. I think he's just a solid all-arounder. If you remember, pre-DLC particularly, when Solgard came out, I hated Solgard. I was a big hater, but I've come around. Titan Channel is just, he's a 210 at the end of the game, and he's good throughout. Mm-hmm. The only thing that I really have trouble with now is sometimes I go into Daedalus and I go, wait, my 45 doesn't win this for free. So that's the only downside for me right now. But Titan Channel is a strong all-rounder. I think he's actually top of A. He's better than Brawler.
I put Titan Channel in S. I think I have a personal just love for Titan Channel. It's not like a sexy champ path, but it just always just gets it done. Like it's and it kind of defies a lot of what I think about what I need in the DLC. Like it's not multi-striking. It doesn't really have a good way to within clan to do much more than just be a stat stick, but I don't know, just everything, like it's so strong early, it's so strong late, you don't get ember drained, and I think that's actually a big upside is the ember drain. It's like a pseudo, say maybe a 0.25 ember upgrade, because I think as I kind of determined, I kind of find the first 3 turns to be the most important, and if I get a whole extra card that I can play on turn 2, I think that's somewhat of a big deal. I don't think there's necessarily a huge ceiling with Titan Channel, but the floor just, it's quite rare that I'm gonna run into a run where I cannot, in the DLC, pop it by the time the first wave meets me, especially, it's just the additional ways to reduce Ember and maybe get Spell Chain and whatnot. Yeah, I just find Titan Channel to be so solid.
Yeah, Solgard has the unique, I guess, the reward or whatever it is to be the one champion that I have all over the place in my tier list. I do also have Titan Channel in S tier. I actually think that it is just so unbelievably consistent that it makes you so strong early. It lets you take things very aggressively, and that can be trials, that can be shard upgrades. You see a plus 30 you want to slap into an ice storm on ring 2, you're good. You can go to 30 shards no problem into rings 2 and 3. It's very powerful right away, easy to use, even with foregone powers and the worst clan combos possible. I can still get him out in the early game no problem. And even in the worst clan combos possible, I can tailor my deck to get him out in the late game no problem. It's just a matter of spending the time to learn how to do that, pretty much. I do think there's a bit of a learning curve. You get one of those bad combos, people sometimes mess up and then they go. A lot of my curse seed submissions are things like they're actually very normal runs of I have Solgard and Dregs what do, and I don't actually think it's that bad as long as you don't also see terrible stuff all along the way. But yeah, if I could see Titan Channel in every single run from ring 1, this champion would be an S tier for me, hands down. The fact that I can't is the only reason that I rank him lower than I do overall.
Where'd you put Titan Channel?
I have Titan Channel in S tier.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Dang.
Yeah, Cranberry, did you talk about Titan Channel?
Not yet.
Go
One thing I wanted to point out for Solgard in general, I guess, is that unlike most of the other champions, I guess Shardtail Queen is the only real difference, or the only one that's kind of similar. It's a very centralizing champion where it's like no matter what you do, you're gonna do this strategy, right? Shardtail Queen, it's imp. So no matter what you do, you're gonna probably play an imp run in some way. Titan or Solgard, no matter what you do, you're gonna play an incant run. Is like the idea. You're gonna play as many spells as possible, and your champion's always gonna reward you for doing that, right? So I guess the question comes down to what's the best reward, and Titan Channel's a pretty good one. It's a pretty big boy you get for it. It's not hard to get that big boy, especially in the early game. It's pretty easy to play the spells you need to make him a real boy. So I only put it in the A tier though. I think that it's pre DLC it was crazy because it killed everything, no problem. But post DLC, it's a little bit trickier now. The 210 isn't quite enough to kill heavies, but usually Stygian has the support you need to kill them. You can usually play a spell and get things low enough to the point where Titan Channel can kill them. But I think it's pretty good. I put it in A tier. I like Titan Channel a lot. He's very strong.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only one he misses is the 290, but yeah, that's there's like one wave on the deals and the Divinity that has the 290s in it, but yeah, that can matter on ring 7 and 8 for sure.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean, it's different than the other S tier champions. Champion paths for me, in my opinion, simply because it doesn't fill the role of auto winning you the run, but it's so consistent and easy to use throughout the run and very low risk as well, that I think it pretty much always sets you up to win, and that I have to give some credit for. So
yeah, I do want to mention Titan Channel does not kill the infused tanks because they're 230, but it's not a crazy difference.
That's a good point. There is one of those on the Divinity as well. Yeah.
However, I was about to be swayed into putting him into S tier, then I remembered that Foregone Power comes with this champion, and he's staying in A. Fuck you, Foregone Power.
Fair.
All right, everyone.
Everyone's favorite.
Now we get to talk about the other one. I feel like Solgard is, like Dusk said, you have a very good, very consistent champion path that is strong in Titan Channel. You have a hard to play but high reward champion path in Cold Channel, and then you have the most consistent champion path in the game in Dire Channel, and that is consistently fucking worthless.
Is this the other secret F character?
It's not a secret. I am Dire Channel's loudest hater. This champion makes even after playing the runs that I did with Dire Channel, I actually won pretty quickly with Dire Channel. I think I won on the first try, but it's just this champion is worse than Siren of the Sea in every single case. I don't care. People in the comments were trying to convince me that he's better. He's not better.
If you give him attack upgrades and then it has the incant, it's like it has multi-strike though.
Yeah.
Ugh.
True.
Oh man, I'm sorry to any viewer who sees this. That is so not true. God.
No, he's right.
It's like
No,
it has
no, he's right,
multi-strike
actually.
because it attacks and then the trigger happens on the shard, so it hits twice.
You know
It's
what?
like it has multi-strike.
It's,
All right, I
yeah,
changed
it's
my
like
mind. Solgard's going up to A tier.
Oh
Channel's
no. Oh no.
Uh-huh.
I literally had a run where I thought that would work and it still didn't. Like I was giving rage to Dire Channel and incanting, and it still sucked
Yeah.
horribly.
You don't say. You don't say.
It's one of those like white room philosophy ideas that sounds cool. You're like, oh yeah, he does his action and then he attacks. And it's in practice, it is never correct. You are always better served by just, well, I don't know, take Titan Channel one level higher so it doesn't suck, or play Cold Channel and throw him away so he actually does literally anything. You're absolutely right, Voyix. Dire Channel is worse in every single way than Siren of the Sea. Full stop. I also think it's worse, full stop, than Nameless Siren, quite frankly, because I can put an Incant Armor 2 on Nameless Siren, and she's tankier than Dire Channel 2. So it's really, there's no reward to using this champion. It's so unequivocally bad. I have it as my other F tier champion for sure.
But the multi-strike.
And this is the crazy thing. I mean, I've got freaking S tier Titan Channel, B tier Cold Channel, and F tier Dire Channel. This champion
What a spread.
is right all over the place.
Yeah, no, I and you know, we talked about the direct comparison to the Sirens. I would also directly compare it to Titan Channel. I mean, let's say you go all three Dire Channel, all three Titan Channel. You know, you have to incant more than Titan Channel already to even get it to do more damage. It's what, seven damage per shard. So
I don't know. I've never seen Dire Channel 3.
I'll do this math for you real quick because I just did it. You have to incant twice as much as Titan Channel for him to catch up. You have to do 30.
And that says it all right there, right? 30
with no HP.
I've
Yeah, no
never
HP.
thought of that. That's so terrible.
Yeah.
So even if you did in like the perfect universe set up Dire Channel, it's still just worse than, I don't know, play the other path, you loser.
Yeah.
Right.
But you got the multi-strike.
All right. Cranberry, would you like to say anything other than the multi-strike before we move
No,
on? Yeah.
it's F tier. It is bad.
We've all gotten those
Yeah.
comments. Like, I've seen it on everyone's videos at some point, and it's just,
I don't think I've ever gotten a comment about playing Dire Channel because I just never pick it, so I don't have to worry about it.
When I played Dire Channel in my challenge and I talked about how bad he was, someone was in my comments legitimately defending. They said he's not as bad as he thinks. He's overplaying it. I closed YouTube. I did not respond.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add that this was my pick for the worst path in the game.
Oh yeah,
Dire Channel.
unanimously,
Yep.
right? This is the worst path
Yeah.
in the game.
I think there's an argument for maybe the Tethys, but whatever. You know, apparently everyone loves Tethys or whatever.
Yeah,
I
put her in
don't-
D tier.
I don't think any Tethys is worse than Dire Channel. I mean,
I think Handheld Totem's fucking terrible.
It has sweep on it.
Yeah, but it has like 3 damage.
I mean, when we were playing this game on stream a lot more, I remember Dusk hypothesizing Sweepy. You remember that unit, Dusk?
oh god,
Oh,
I actually think I do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's
Sweepy?
like-
What the heck is Sweepy?
Sweepy's a 1/1 with sweep, and we all agreed that he's probably still busted.
Yeah, well, that's different. That's different. It's
Is
an
it?
actual unit and not a champion. Then yeah, it is a
I
lot
guess
different.
That's true. You
Mister.
get to upgrade.
Yeah,
Fair.
Mister. Don't even try
No,
to.
you're right. You're right.
Don't try to frick with me right now.
Sometimes people will say to me, "Man, I wish I could just put unit upgrades on Tethys," and then I just go, "Yeah, me too, but for Primordium." And then they go, "Oh." Let's talk about Penumbra.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a ton to say about Penumbra. First of all, I think going into these from here on, I want to talk about multipathing at the start. I don't think you do a lot of multipathing with Penumbra. The only one is, as people have referred to it in the past, Cranberry's secret sauce of Monsters 1, Glutton 2.
Mm-hmm. That's my sauce.
That's his sauce.
I will only humor that path combination if I start with fossilized fangs.
Yes,
Full
yes,
stop.
it
No,
is
yeah,
required.
100%.
It is, that's part of the sauce. That's part
Yeah.
of the sauce is
I-
having fossilized
Yeah.
fangs.
It's the only time I've ever clicked Glutton.
Yeah, I'll talk about it a little more when we get to Glutton. I'm going to start with Architect, and I'm going to say Architect is A tier. He is A for Architect. He is absolutely on the run. Intrinsic Space Prism is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
The best thing that
100%.
Umbra can do is get out of your way, and Architect does that.
Yeah, I fully agree. I have him in A tier as well. It's a very simple path. I mean, he's Intrinsic Space Prism that hits for 100 damage, and that's really friggin' good. There's very little else to say about it. Most clans love a 6-space floor and can do really silly things with it. And if you have a 6-space floor that also does 100 damage just by existing, it can't go wrong with it. So
Yep.
I love Architect.
I like Architect. I don't think I love Architect, and I think it's important to note that it's an intrinsic space prism in the end game. In the earlier game, it's still good, but it's not that good.
Yeah.
So I put it only in B tier, but I think it's definitely the strongest Penumbra, and I think it's good, but it's not like it is like a low or it's a high floor, low ceiling champion, I would say.
Even then, in the early game, he's a 1-space unit that has like 25-20. That's pretty darn good for the early game.
There's a reason why I'm saying it's better than Tethys, okay?
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
It's good, but it's not like it's never like, oh man, thank God I had Architect Penumbra on this run.
Yeah,
what would I have done without it?
You're right.
You would have taken a space upgrade instead.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. The thing is a lot of champions, they're annoying. They get in your way.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that Architect never gets in your way, in my opinion, is really important.
Yeah,
so
cool.
You're right. Like, I don't think that he's not winning the run for sure, but I'm always happy to see him. I'm like, oh yeah, let's go Architect. Umbra, be as least of a problem for me as you can, pretty much.
I think it's important that the 100 damage is also pretty significant, especially in the Divinity, where you have like these giant waves of like enemies with like 100-ish health, and it's like, oh, yeah. Architect also just kills one of them. Cool, as long as you put him like roughly in the middle of your floor, which is pretty easy to do as well. So he is good. I like him.
Yeah, I put him in the A tier as well. Not much to add other than the only time I might consider not taking, he's pretty much a snap pick for me. But the only time I wouldn't snap pick it is probably with Awoken, particularly with Fitz Restore secondary, because there are some situations where it actually can be detrimental to put it on your floor if you're specifically doing the Awoken Hollow plus backliner thing. I've had that throw some runs for me before, but that's about the only minor bad thing I could ever say about Architect. Everything else is just super high value and kind of like Cranberry said, not much of a ceiling, but definitely a pretty good floor.
Good point. You can get in the way of cultivates. I hadn't thought of that. All right. Monstrous is another one that got left behind. I'm gonna put him. It's close. I'm gonna put him bottom of C, but I think I could be convinced to drop him in D. He's just too big. You're forced to take a Space Prism at the end of the game if you want to play him, and he's a 170-100. He dies on like the second turn of the Divinity, but he does kill the first wave for you. So I don't know.
Does he though?
I think he does. No, he doesn't.
Well, if it's the damage shield ones, then no, he does not.
No, you're right. Oh god. Oh, Monstrous. He got left behind. Even if you give him lifesteal, he's just doomed. Poor guy.
I have Monstrous in B tier myself because I find myself taking cards like Immortal Trade a lot, and it doesn't take a lot to get Monstrous to survive a few waves, like one lifesteal. I think the big downside of the champion path, and the only reason I don't rank him A tier actually myself, is because he takes space. He forces you to pick space if you want to lean in on him, which is you want to. So it sucks that you have to do that no matter what. And so you're kind of forcing yourself to find a run that wants that 6th space to begin with, which limits you a little bit. But otherwise, I mean, with Immortal Trade in my commons or lifesteal from any random location, things like Refined Void, I mean, I will slam him down, and if I can get him to the Harvest Wave, he's cruising. So
that's fair.
I fully recognize my take here is pretty hot, but maybe if I can. You did say you want to be convinced to drop him, Voyix, so
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
putting him in my F tier.
Ooh,
What the heck?
Oh, okay, I'm
Whoa.
listening.
All right, all
Um,
right.
I don't know. I guess to me, it's like it's the only champ that actually requires. I don't know if significant is the right word, but an investment to play if I want to go all the paths. But at the same time, I kind of have to go all in on that path if I want to get like anything out of the champ. There is that edge case where you can flex Glutton with it, and either you have a Shroud Spike or some artifact support that makes that work. Like that's okay, and for that reason I put him to the top of my F. But I don't know, as a full monstrous, I've never been that impressed. Like it, 50% of the time that first divinity wave is damage shield, and if I can't break the damage shields, it just doesn't do much there. And then the second wave, if I don't have any additional ways to keep it alive, keeping in mind that that's like additional investment, which I've already invested to get him extra pip to even be able to get played. He'll just die because his HP is such a joke. Like for something that takes up the entire floor, probably can't even get a chump blocker in front of it. It just so often is so underwhelming to me that it's ended up in my F tier, I guess. I've had too many runs where it does so little for me when I already had to take like a pip upgrade for it.
Quick interjection from me on that point. Something worth mentioning is that you have to play him bottom floor, because there's no way you're putting him top floor, and he can't fit middle floor unless you took double space. I think that's a big knock against him for me. I'll think about it. I'll see if I get him down to D. Cranberry?
Oh.
Oh.
What happened to Cranberry?
Oh no, we lost him.
Rip.
Would someone like to do a Cranberry roleplay?
The best part is you just laugh, and then that's half a role play and half also making fun of the idea of doing a role play.
Uh-huh. I think Cranberry would put Monstrous in, I think he'd put him in D tier, maybe C.
Yeah,
He's
I think
typing.
It is part of a special sauce.
Hang on.
Oh, hello, I
You
can hear
sons
you.
of bitches.
There he
we
is.
can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Hello. Hi. Monstrous Penumbra Stinky. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead. Sauce.
Yeah. The thing, the monstrous glutton combo build thingy, whatever, is a very fringe case. I don't stand
Oh,
by
yeah.
that being like, oh, it makes Penumbra really good or something. No, that's not even close to being true. I do think it's interesting. I hadn't thought of it before, I guess, really, but it does kind of make sense to use Monstrous Penumbra as sort of like an all-in Ember Drain carry.
Yeah.
Like, it's got the stats for it. You don't need other units on the floor if you give it like 400 damage shield and or lifesteal, and 3 furnace taps, I guess. Like it does make sense to me in that sense, but I don't trust that as being a really solid strategy either. I guess it really is depending on what you have in your start. If you have like some decent morsel support in your starting cards, I would prefer taking Glutton probably. But if you have maybe some good Ember Drain cards and you're looking at both Glutton and Monstrous, I will probably, I guess, take Monstrous then. But no matter what my start is, if I see Architect, I'm taking it over these two pretty much every time.
Yeah. Okay, we have about 25 minutes. I will speed us along here. I mean, we should be able to go through the rest of this pretty fast, I feel. However, I do want to...
Also, real quick, I put Glutton and Monstrous both in D tier.
Okay,
It's important to note.
I'm about to do Glutton real quick for me. Right, we didn't even do Glutton yet, right?
Not really.
Okay. Now, I have... Gentlemen, I have to reveal something to you. I've called you here for a special occasion. I'm adding a third champion to the F tier. It's Glutton.
What the heck?
I played what I would feel is the perfect Glutton run through this challenge, and he still almost lost. I had the fossilized fangs. I had great morsel generation. And while I was doing the run, I did some math. If you have Glutton and you have fossilized fangs, it's still close. You can almost numerically not make it with everything going right for Glutton. And you can make it to a point where you full commit to this champion. You do everything right, even if you're playing 6 morsels per turn, and he still does not have the damage to kill the harvest wave. The harvest wave. That's
Did you
the
take
one.
the monstrous dip?
I don't remember if I had the monstrous dip or not. I know I had fossilized fangs. I think I had fossilized fangs in the monstrous dip, and I still almost didn't make it. It was glutton 2, monstrous 1 with fossilized fangs, and it made me come to the realization that if you play this champion perfectly, you still get outscaled on the divinity, I'm pretty sure. I think he's actually just unplayable. But you can win with it, but you have to have like the actual stars aligned for this champion to be okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put him in F tier, because also he makes me mad.
I like him in the early game.
I hate him in the early game. He doesn't kill Daedalus very well.
Just give him some morsels, he'll be fine.
Yeah, true. Glutton rant over. I'm done.
Yeah, I've got him in D. I can see the argument for F. He's pretty tough, but considering how bad the F tier champions for me are, he has to be a D tier. It's close. He's pretty abysmal. I mean, it's even in the best of cases, he's not that great, but I do at least think he has potential early game. I'm imagining the world where you see Architect, Glutton, and you have absolutely nothing. I'm trying to think of even when I would pick Glutton here, but there's got to be something. I think it's definitely got to be better than Royalty and Dire Channel at least. I don't know.
It is better than those two.
I think if you look at your relics first, you see fossilized fangs, then maybe you take Glutton. And even then, it's like a little risky, but it'll be a little bit, it'll be a little fun.
Yeah, I mean, that is it. He's a for fun champion. I think that it's really hard to conceive of a position where I would pick Architect or pick Glutton over one of the other two. It's really just something that I only ever do for fun. And I stopped having fun recently because he's like numerically awful on the divinity. You have to jump through so many hoops and commit your whole life to morsels, and then this champion is still not gonna make it.
I might give my slight defense of Glutton. It's not a big defense. I have him D tier as well, but top of D tier.
Oh.
I do think he's pretty good the first 2 rings. Ring 3 is debatable, but I think rings 1 and 2, it is one of the stronger paths in the game personally. But I think the main problem for me is that the additional ranks don't give it any additional starting stats. So like that becomes a huge issue considering divinity. You have 20 health now, and you most likely have to go mid against the multi-strike, which is like a really tough thing. You're really hoping you find some intrinsic health there. There are some runs you find wing technology and you can go top, and then that'll be fine. I think maybe my thing with Glutton is, I think I would look at it differently than like comparing it with Fossilized Fangs, because like Fossilized Fangs is pretty good, but I think what really determines if Glutton can be used endgame or not is Shroud Spike particularly.
Yeah.
That's the thing that can really hyperscale it. And to some extent Shroud Mitosis, though I think Shroud Mitosis is just very, very barely enough in a lot of cases. But I think I've had enough runs where I actually did make Glutton work late game that it kept it out of the F tier for me. But I will say it's a feast or famine thing. Like, this champ is so...
I get it.
Abysmal most of the time, Oh yeah, I see what I did there. I didn't even... Yeah, you caught that one before I even did.
Yeah. I mean, I will say... My biggest problem with it is you're basically committing your whole run to generating morsels, and then if you miss one of the rare cards to make it okay, your run collapses. It's very hard to pivot out of morsels because they are terrible.
Right.
Alright, last thing. The other thing that I think is bad about Glutton is that morsels generate their stats randomly, so you could need to generate attack and you could just generate a bunch of health and then lose also.
Yeah, sure.
Alright.
What I think, to me, that's why Glutton, one advantage it has is at least it is skewed toward attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's the unpredictable. Morsels just need help in general.
Yeah. Morsels need another buff, but All right, let's rapid fire through some of this. I think we can do Primordium pretty quickly. I'll do all three of them. You can tell me which ones you agree or disagree with, and if you have anything you want to add. I'm gonna go Stalwart Snack, like top of A, Superfood Aggressive Edible top of S, or probably Aggressive Edible top of S, and then Superfood below Strangler for me. Basically, Aggressive Edible, Superfood are pretty much auto wins in your run, and Stalwart Snack is an auto win if you're playing with a clan that can buff it, and you get an intrinsic. It's even easier.
Yeah, I mean, I've got S tier aggressive, S tier superfood, but I have B tier stalwart. I think that there are very few clan paths or clan combinations where I go, yeah, stalwart snack is good here. I think that its biggest advantage is when you already have enough superfood and you just want more turns.
Yep.
And that's basically it. Otherwise, I don't actually think it's that good of a path. I actually don't think that. I think Primordium in general rides or dies on his other two paths so heavily in order to be as good of a champion as he is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close to that. I go aggressive S tier. I actually put superfood in A tier and then stalwart in B. For more or less the same reasons. I think that superfood's a little more reliant on you getting other buffs for it. Obviously, it has the base damage shield as well, which is pretty strong. So if you just go superfood 3, you're also pretty happy. And then Stalwart Snack, if you're like Awoken or Wormkin, it's gonna be pretty cool because you can, put a Echo Transfer on it, and now it's really good. But it's a little finicky too. And Aggressive Edible is just so easy and strong, so it goes in the S tier.
I think I went A tier for both superfood and aggressive. I think I've just had a few. The stuff I have in the S, I think, probably protects or doesn't have a few of the low roll runs that I've experienced with both superfood and aggressive, where it's like, I don't know. Aggressive is, I think, a little bit more consistent than superfood, but I've had enough runs where it was like a run where I didn't find a sweeper, I didn't find a multi-strike, I couldn't go top, where it was like just wasn't doing massive things for me. And then I actually put my Stalwart Snack in D tier. I think, as we kind of said, it really only makes sense with superfood. It hardly ever makes sense as a full, like, all 3 path. And in my opinion, it pretty much never makes sense with aggressive. It just, you literally get more overall stats from aggressive anyway, and they come in faster. Now, maybe there's some exceptions if you have a lot of flat scaling, but in general, like, I've had, like, I think with Stalwart, it's like starting Stalwart, if I'm not, like, Root Seeds, is actually just so bad that it is probably the reason I put it into D, because, like, I guess I'm just kind of ranking it as, like, well, if I'm not just using it as a flex with superfood, what's it getting for me? And that's usually just a pretty bad champ. I think all full Stalwart is actually a pretty bad champ path most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think that it's interesting to note that Stalwart Snack basically requires Feast, or else you just don't finish eating your champion in time for the Relentless at the end.
Mm-hmm.
I think Stalwart is more of like a splash. I do want to make a quick mention that Superfood is one of the paths where it is hard countered by a boss in the game, which is Sap Seraph. I think Superfood, I haven't actually tried it lately, but I think Superfood can brick your run into Sap Seraph.
Also a little countered by Seraph the Chase too.
Yeah, a little bit. Not as hard though. One more thing I want to mention. Dusk, someone has told me a few times that you have said that there's a theoretically unwinnable run with Primordium.
Yeah, there is. It's draw order dependent, but if you pick aggressive edible, you don't have an impactful set of starters or an impactful early relic, and you bottom deck all of your train stewards, you can draw no units, and the correct choice in almost all circumstances is to play Primordium turn 1, so you have him ready for when the train stewards show up. But if nothing can get hit by plinks, it's very specific to draw order and very specific to which fight you see on ring 1, because it also has to be something that plink can't help you against. But a good example would be take money on ring 1, and you have first defense, so it's damage shield buddies, and the 10 shards results in the first of your clerics getting upgraded. If you bottom deck all of your train stewards on that run, you lose Primordium and then lose the run from there. No way out.
There it is.
So it's interesting because Primordium is the biggest victim of this, even as one of the strongest champions, but it's one of the things I constantly look for in Curse Seeds. I believe it exists. It has to exist theoretically somewhere. I just need someone to submit it to me. I just want to see it. That's it. I just want to see that run whenever it happens.
Aren't there like other champions that could happen with theoretically too? Like, I don't know, Tethys. like couldn't you also just have like another champion just have really bad stats? I guess like the part of it is that like you have playing which are a really terrible potentially card too in the early game. So
yeah, maybe Tethys. I've seen some people theorize some things, but it comes down to you just get too much value out of, even in the worst of case, like Conduit is going to give you too much value to auto lose, and then Chillwind is too strong to auto lose.
That makes sense. What about handheld totem though?
Well, the thing is the idea is you have to make correct choices, right? Mm-hmm. So the point of the run is you play it like you would play a correct run. Starting with handheld totem, if you have no support for it, is suicide. That's a bad choice. This is like choosing Burnout Rector when you have no reforms or Burnout extenders, and then being mad when you don't have him you didn't draw him for your boss, right? Like, yeah.
Okay, this is a great segue here.
Yeah. I wanted to bring it up real quick because I thought that was interesting that someone told me about that. Yeah. I think, real quick final thought. I think it's interesting because you could have a run where no matter what you do, you could lose, right? Because you could have like aggressive edible stalwart snack starter, make all the right choices, and no matter what you do, you can't beat the seed. So this is also this also acts as a call to arms. If you find a seed like that, send it in. Send it to me or to Dusk or Gabriot or Cranberry.
I don't want it.
Alright, don't send it to Cranberry. Alright, let's bang through these real quick. I mean, there's not a ton for me to say about Rector. I feel like I'm gonna give Accumulator, which is Harvest Rector, like middle B. I'm gonna give Burn Bright like lower A, and I'm gonna give Dark Calling bottom of C. I don't actually think Dark Calling is bad. I just really don't want to play him. I don't think he's fun, so I just never pick him. I think that Harvest is good. Harvest is one of the few champions where his numbers were absurd before the DLC, so now they're just okay. Burn Bright is good, but sometimes you can't play him, like Dusk said. Sometimes you just have to be like super careful with it. And I think Dark Calling is just kind of boring. I don't care how good it is, I just don't enjoy it. So I'm just gonna rank it lower.
Damn.
Yeah, I'll be the first to go to bat for Dark Calling. I have it as high A tier. I think it's incredibly strong, but it's also the hardest champion path to play in the game. And it just naturally takes more time, which I think, it's fair that people wouldn't want to do that. I think I actually have Burn Bright overall as an A tier path as well. Statistically, you're pretty likely to see something in your opener that helps him. And even just pivoting into him later is pretty awesome. I think the only downside is if you have just like the starter that does not support him at all. And it can be a little sticky, but I have the Harvest Rector as C tier personally. Mostly, I actually think it's really strong. The thing is that it doesn't jive with anything in melting is the problem.
Yeah.
You need something that is a very, very high powered, fast scaling offensive unit, and he needs to stand in front of it, and that's it. And you play that on middle floor and it cruises. The thing is that melting has only one of those, and it's a rare unit. It's called Big Sludge. You may have heard of
my boy.
You may have heard of Mr. Tiny Hat. Like, he's really, really good with Accumulator, but he's rare. You can't rely on seeing him. So you're looking for something, I don't know, like 3 multi-strike Nameless Siren, no defense whatsoever. Something crazy like that, where she's just, or like Shattered Shell, all in offense. You're relying on dealing with the spikes and stuff in other ways, like resin removal or whatever, and you just use Mr. 1000 HP champion to tank for it, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think Accumulator and Burn Bright I have actually both in the C tier. I just don't like playing with them anymore at this point.
Fair.
Like Dust said, Accumulator is really good if you put it in front of a guy, one specific unit from melting, but it's just I don't know. I don't trust him anymore. I don't trust Accumulator anymore. And then if I have the choice between Burn Bright or Dark Calling, I think most times I'll just take Dark Calling instead. Obviously, if I don't have that choice, then whatever. But Burn Bright is just again, I don't trust him to do what he's supposed to do anymore. And like if I'm playing like a big burnout run, like I'm doing like some crazy paraffin enforcer stuff, I'd rather just have more enforcers than put Burn Bright on the floor. So I don't know. He's a little weak now, and he's also with a lot of the other champions. He's got like sort of DLC syndrome where his numbers were really good, before, but now post DLC he does struggle to kill some of the bigger boys in the late game. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's maybe why I haven't been too high on Burn Bright post DLC. I actually kind of flipped, I guess, the norm here. I put Burn Bright D, Accumulator C, and then Dark Calling A. I guess, yeah, I think for Burn Bright, for me, it was like, it's still really good through early and mid game, but I guess the third rank is just pretty underwhelming to me. It doesn't seem to keep up with particularly the offense that I need at that point in the game. Defensively, it's okay, but like, I don't know, like if I compare it to Titan Channel, it seems like it follows the stats rank 1 and rank 2, but then just for whatever reason, it severely is under Titan Channel at rank 3 when you compare the stats side by side. So it's like what I do get from Titan Channel, I just don't seem to be getting that from Burn Bright. And an Accumulator, I don't have much to add there. I think it's pretty much as similar to everybody here. Dark Calling, I guess the only thing that keeps Dark Calling out of S for me personally is that I don't think additional ranks past the first rank are super impactful with Dark Calling. But not to it's similar to Strangler, but not quite to that level. I think I'm almost always wanting to flex Dark Calling into Accumulator, just so it can actually become a good statted unit on the board. Even just two ranks of Accumulator can be all you need really to make it a pretty good unit on the board, and then still get a Dark Calling effect. And I think really the appeal of Dark Calling to me is specifically that I can take a draft and not have to worry about finding a molded. So often it's like you speculatively take a draft when you're running drags, and if you don't have a reform, it's like really kind of iffy on that run if it's going to work out or not. And especially like the draft infusion is so valuable that I think Dark Calling, just simply making you having a guaranteed reform is very valuable.
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, like I said, I think Dark Calling is good. I just don't want to play it. But I moved Accumulator down to C after hearing you guys talk. Because, yeah, you're right. I looked at it and I went, is Accumulator really as good as my other B tier champions? Nah, not really. The only thing I'm going to say in Burn Bright's defense is I think that it's just monstrous penumbra, but easier to play. He has a big drawback, which is he dies and you need to help him, but it's a lot easier to fight his drawback. We should wrap up. Let's rapid fire through the rest of this. We got 5 minutes.
I mean, if I have to go, you guys can just finish the rest of it without me.
Yeah, well, we can. I mean, I don't think anyone really has to. Honestly, I don't want to talk about Little Fate. Triple S tier, move on is my feeling.
Yeah.
Fate is the most powerful champion
I put Little Icarus in A tier for the record.
Okay.
I did as well.
That's fair. I think that
other 2 S tier though.
I think that Little Fate is hands down the strongest champion in the game. It's not close. If I were to make an S+ tier, Fate would go alone in it, and all the paths are good. I think that Little Icarus is the only one that's even conceivably losable with. So, I think if you play the game correctly, it's hard to lose with Fate. She's just hard to learn.
Yeah. My only deviation from that is I actually think Eternal Flame is A and not S. But yeah.
Yeah,
That's interesting. Do you put Little Icarus in S though?
No,
Or-
I have Little Icarus in A as well.
Okay.
I think the thing that makes Fade so strong to me is honestly just the consistency of it. Like, it plays nice, you get primitive molds. Eternal Flame props up any bad run, but my reason for it not being S tier is just that you still need the rest of your run. You still need a relentless plan or something, and she just kind of helps a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I think you can adjust as you see fit, but overall I think Fade is like undisputably the best champion in the game. I think you can win with any path from almost any position. The only one
Agreed.
is like Little Icarus can have a bad start and then force you to play something else, but Little Icarus is like, you start with Welder Helper and your run's over in 15 minutes. It's crazy.
I might need another buff though. Might need to give Little Fade another buff though. Maybe.
Yeah, I think I agree. She's definitely a poster child of not buffing on win rate. But let's talk about Chef. Unless anyone has any other burning desires to talk about Fade.
Not really.
I do have my hot take. I
Go ahead.
actually think Chef for me is better than Little Fade.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Get this guy out of here.
All right. Well, let's go through. Let's do all three of them. Actually, how about what we can do is we could just have Cranberry give his opinions on the remainders, and we could go talk about them since he has to
Yeah.
go.
Oh, that would be great actually.
Yeah, go Cranberry. Go ahead. Give your
So
opinions and your
for
rankings.
me, I've got Corruptor and Decayer in A tier, and then Infector in C tier. I think Corruptor and Decayer both do pretty cool things. Decayer acts as both kind of like a tank and a backline killer with Reap, which is very strong. He is 3 space, so it is annoying, but I think the Wormkin clan does work kind of well with eggs and having small space, but Decayer doesn't work well with eggs, so it's a bit of an issue there. Corruptor, I think, is a very good enabler of things like eggs and stuff, and just whatever you're doing ends up being pretty good, kind of no matter what. And then Infector, like we were talking about before, actually, when we mentioned, what did we say when we mentioned it? Were we talking about, was it Brawler?
It was
Prince?
royalty.
Royalty, okay. But like it falls into the same like idea where Infector is significantly worse than the other two, but not so much that I would put it in the F tier. It's still like a playable unit. It gets, triple multi-strike, which is kind of neat. Acts kind of like Windleton Predator, where like, if you go all into the path, it does have good stats. But I don't value the JO Crystal Generation nearly as much as I guess the other two paths. So there's that, and then with Echo Right for me, I put Shellsmith A tier, and then Marsh Lord and Repeater B tier. Repeater, I feel like, is just too reliant on having a good consume card in your starting cards, and if you don't, it's really hard to play. And then Marsh Lord, everyone hates Marsh Lord, but I like him. I trust him. He's helped out, especially in the early game. He does really good work. And I've not had trouble pivoting into the late game, still relying on him. And then Shellsmith is just consistent value. Again, you do need like starting consume cards, but I'm willing to take Shellsmith. But if I have like Shellsmith and Repeater and no good consume cards, I will take Shellsmith over Repeater. Because I trust that I'll be able to find some consume cards and get more value out of Shellsmith than I will out of Repeater. And that's my logic there.
Okay.
Guys, enjoy the rest of the video. Have fun. I do have to leave now, though.
Yeah, if you would like, you could do some plugs before you go.
I refuse.
Okay, I will do plugs for you at the end of the video.
Cool. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Cranberry. Thanks for
Hey,
coming.
Cranberry.
Yeah, later, Cranberry.
See ya.
All right, now that he's gone, we can talk nonstop shit about him. Finally.
Yeah, jeez, that loser.
Can
God.
you believe those opinions? Oh my god.
Oh my.
He said what about Marsh Lord?
Oh my
Oh.
god. All right. Let's do. Yeah, I'm down to just go one by one now, since you guys know where to be, right?
Nah.
No, I'm good.
All right, let's do Corruptor then. Now, which one is Corruptor? Is he the one that makes the floor do more damage?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put Corruptor in like middle B. My problem with this champion is that, and my problem with Spine Chief overall is that he has really bad survivability issues in a clan that cannot help him survive. So he ends up in the front a lot and just getting bulldozed in my runs. And when Corruptor dies, your run crumbles. You can't come back. Like I'll have runs where, and this is maybe just a side because of, hey, I'm here, I play a lot of slice and dice now, and I'm a big proponent of being able to undo things. I find myself in a lot of positions thinking I'm fine going into Relentless, and then Corruptor dies on like turn 3 and my floor falls apart and I just get shocked and get caught and lose the run. So I think that Corruptor is good, but I feel like his biggest problem is just survivability in a clan that cannot help him at all. That's my piece. Go ahead.
I like Corruptor a lot. I have him up in A tier. I will say, disagree with Gabriot. I do not think he's stronger than Fade overall. I think the only thing that holds him back is space. And I think that the clan that he's in wants space very badly. So you're looking for ways of jamming those floors together. Corruptor is extremely strong if you can fit a lot of stuff on his floor. If you only have a few things like a couple eggs, it's an okay. It does fine. It does a good job. Decayer can solo a run, it's true. I think I do have him ranked very highly, but like Corruptor in particular, you got to put it next to Firelight and think about it like that. Firelight does better than Corruptor and is one space and is a chump blocker that you want to die. Corruptor is flimsy for what he's trying to do, but is also more durable than the units you're putting behind him. So keeping him alive is actually kind of tough. I genuinely believe that he's really strong, though. I have him at A tier, but I don't think he's in that S tier area quite yet.
So I know this is gonna be my hottest take probably.
Yeah.
This is my top path.
Really?
I think. Yeah. I guess so. The way I think a Corruptor, I think comparing directly to Firelight is probably the easiest comparison to make. Which I also have in my S tier, but I think I prefer Corruptor for really just the advantage it has in the first 3 rings, in my opinion, over Firelight. I have had some runs where ring 1 in particular, Firelight is actually pretty bad. On top of just not being able to like take shards and whatnot. Whereas like with Corruptor, I'll pretty much never have problems with rings 1 through 3. I think the big thing to do there is like I'll usually put Steward in front of Corruptor early on, and that usually is mitigating the downside of his HP pool, which I still think I think his HP pool is pretty good personally. It's not like amazing, but I don't find too many issues with keeping him alive, I guess. Usually, if I can find any quick upgrade, that's usually enough, just because my floor will be doing so much attack that if my, say I have any sort of multi-striker or even like the Bogfly eggs with a quick upgrade, that's usually going to be good enough, and then I'll just hell vent it. Or if I don't find quick, there's pretty good survivability, I think, in the Wormkin clan. Like Soul Crushing Guilt is pretty good. There is like Shelter, and to some extent there's support cards like the Symphony of a Soul sometimes can like double some buff that might be useful. So I think where it and I will admit it falls behind Firelight in the late game, but I guess my argument there is like at that point in the game, the extra that I get from Firelight is just kind of unnecessary. Like what I'm already getting from Corruptor at that point, 20 attack per echo for rank 3 is good enough in almost all cases. So it's I think for me, just what I'm looking for a champ, Corruptor just kind of hits all the boxes.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that's all very fair. I think it's really close, but yeah. I think if I ranked this champion path higher, or if it's usually durable enough. I think if it were a little bit stronger, I would probably have Chef in S tier, I think. But as it's like overall, but as it stands, I have him chilling at the very, very tip top of A tier for me. He's my third strongest champion in the game, in my opinion. And I think a large part of that is kind of solving the run around Corruptor, whereas I think Little Fade walks into the run solved, basically, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's an important thing to mention. Little Fade is the game plan. You don't have to do anything else. She comes with the reforms you need to support her. She's the full package. All you have to do is put a unit behind her with multi-strike. And sometimes it doesn't even need multi-strike. So that is the big pro of Fade. I think that as I've played this game for longer and I've tried to like analyze what's going on, the earlier you solve your run, the earlier you can say, this is my game plan, the earlier you get to stop adding cards and start removing cards to make it so you never miss your game plan. Because you go from, okay, now I have an idea of what I'm doing, to here's what I'm doing, now I can make it so that I can't low roll and lose. And Fade just does that. You just have to play careful at the start of the run, and then she wins you the game for free.
Yeah, that's a good point you bring up. It's like the earlier you can just know that you're set. If the champ can contribute to that, that's a good way to evaluate it.
Yeah, I think it's fair to rate him high. I've had a lot of trouble with keeping him alive. I could see myself, I'm probably at the end going to do a little bit of readjusting to make my tiers. I don't want to have my S tier super crowded, which is looking like it might end up being because of a certain Little Fade. So I'll do a little readjusting at the end, but you want to move on to Decayer here?
Yeah, I think
That's good. Yeah.
This is the Reap one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's A tier for me. I think he's good. In his worst case, he wipes out a few waves before he goes, and in his best case, he wins you the run on his own. Keep him alive, he wins you a lot. I'm gonna put him like high A, just below Titan Channel for me.
Yeah, I'd put Decayer at S, but I put it below everything else. It's like at the bottom of S for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I compare it to Corruptor, I would generally just prefer Corruptor, but I think the main thing is like, whereas I can just put units down to be quick, and that's enough to keep Chief alive with Corruptor, Decayer doesn't quite have that benefit, so I do need to find additional survivability options that I just don't have to find as much with Corruptor. And then they kind of serve a similar thing. I also think with Decayer I have to build a deck a little more toward pink stuff. Like I have to with Corruptor I can get away with not taking as many infused cards, but with Decayer I kind of have to take infused cards, if that makes sense, because getting those inspires is very important. So there are some runs where I think Decayer, depending on what Wormtooth, how nicely Wormtooth wants to play, Decayer can actually fall short sometimes. And to be honest, I almost want to put him in A as I talk through that, because I've definitely had some runs with Decayer where it's just like, man, I'm really not getting anything.
Yeah.
For this champ. I guess you'll still always have your starter cards, but I don't know. On average, though, I think it does so much. Like it so often can just clear all the waves, and like hilariously easy too, I guess. It just seems like that ceiling gets hit almost most of the runs that you run with Decayer.
Yeah, I actually have Decayer as the S tier version of Chief, so I guess I'm a little flipped with Gabriot here on Decayer Corruptor, but I genuinely, if it weren't for the existence of Queen Zempling and Dregs, I think there would be no start where Decayer does not win the run, full stop.
Yes.
That is like my genuine opinion, and because of the existence of those two clan combos, I think Decayer does have a little bit of risk. Whereas things like Firelight is a great example. It doesn't matter what you show me on Firelight. You give me Firelight and I have Melting, cool, I'm winning. It's easy mode. So I do think it's weaker than some of the other S tiers that I have, but I still think that Decayer is so astronomically powerful at all stages of the game, and then Chief also just has such great stats that in the early game that I can use him as a frontline early, use him as a backline later, and win consistently throughout. And he's just so bloody strong. So I have him as S tier, but he's lower than some of the other ones in my S tier. And I'm going to have to go through this tier list because when I originally put it together, I actually didn't rank them in the tiers by strength, but I certainly will when I send you the screenshot at the end. So
Please do. I want to say for Decayer, I think that he's a bit of a higher skill cap than other champions, because if you play Decayer bottom floor, sometimes you will have draws where you don't pull the purple cards correctly, and so sometimes I find myself in positions where the correct play is to just cut your losses, let the first wave that got like partially killed but not entirely killed go, take the hit so that you don't continuously fall behind. And it takes a little bit of work to understand when you have to just give up and let a wave hit you for like 20 and when you can stop it, things like that. But no, I think Decayer is really strong. Like you said, Dusk, Dregs and Queen Zimplings, specifically Queen Zimplings, really doom this champion.
Yeah, they're really, really hard to recover from. That's a very difficult start. Yeah, it's just very tough. And sometimes you can get Chief into like a really awkward scenario where you're just not seeing the answers and you can't rely on champions, so you're kind of struggling a bit.
Yeah. I think it's one of the more difficult combos to pilot, but that really just comes down to the fact that Queen Zimpling is a card that works for Queen, and that's about it. Alright. You want to do Infector now? Anything else to say?
I'm good on that one, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to start with Infector. So I'm
go
going to
ahead.
start here because I have Infector as B tier, but I think that this champion he gets kind of in the shadow of the other two paths pretty commonly, and I think it's easy to look at it and think, oh, it's not great or it's bad. You're inclined to think of it almost like that third path you never try. But whenever I see Infector as an option, I immediately back out of the Forge and look at the pathing. If there are two Wormkin banners in front of me in reasonable enough choices for me to take, Infector is a viable choice. And the reason for that is, one, endless egg strategies love Infector. You can jam so much garbage on his floor and he's generating all the echoes you need for that floor. Two, I think any Inspire unit with Infector is winning, full stop. You can stick it in front, you can stick it behind, you've got choices, you can make it work. The only time it's challenging is if that unit happens to be Shard Soul Carver and you don't have the space to play them together into Ring 3. Then your Daedalus or your Talos can be difficult. But beyond that, you've got it, right? The nice thing about this here is that Infector, when you lean into it, gets his scaling from multi-strike, so he can kind of serve in an Animus of Will / Horned Warrior sort of role, and you can just have a Keeper of Echoes or something in front, and it can do some great work. You can help scale him. Scales really well if you start with Extracts as well. I think the champ gets a little bit worse of a rap than it deserves. I think he's actually pretty decent. He just doesn't have a lot of runs where I'm going, you know what? Infector's better than Corruptor or Decayer here. Usually those other champion paths are just so strong that it's easy to ignore. So, but that's my take.
Yeah, I actually have him in B tier as well. I think I still maintain that if I'm tryharding, I would probably never pick it, but when I do that exercise of just force myself to pick it, it's not a bad path. Like it's a very good effect. And even if you miss on Inspire units, just simply getting extra echoes on the floor can be nice. Especially depending on a few factors, but like you said, if you go all in on it, you do get 3 strikes, and it works pretty well with Echo Transfer or the rare, I forget the name of it, but the rare one that puts all of the echoes in, and like,
Goes of
you
the
know,
past.
Echo of the past, yeah, exactly. And ritual, but other clans could have support for it, so like you can turn it into a pretty good carry unit, and it has a lot of health too. So like it's not a bad path, but I do think like I suppose just in most cases I think I would still rather have Decayer or Corruptor. Like if I think of it in terms of like a cursed seed or whatnot. An interesting point though, like it hasn't come up enough for me to have it actually happen, but I do wonder maybe starting with 2 echo transfers, maybe ideally Infector is the ideal path in that case. Because I will say echo transfer is a card that I like to see most of the time with Wormkin, except when I'm running a Decayer or a Corruptor, especially as a starter card, because it's like it's not pink and it takes away 2 of my echoes. Like it kind of is anti what Corruptor and Decayer are doing, but with Infector it's actually pretty beneficial, so I could maybe even see an argument there. Like if you start with 2 echo transfers, maybe Infector's worth quite a bit of an extra thought to start with. That's that's all I had.
I did not know people did not like Infector this much. I think Infector is fine. I'm gonna put him in B tier as well. So what's the unit that looks like First of Kin but isn't First of Kin? Keeper of Echoes?
Keeper of Echoes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Infector, you pick 2 Keeper of Echoes, you take double space, your run basically plays itself. You're getting 6/6 to your whole floor every round, you just need a little bit of value added to it. I put Infector about the same power as Corruptor. I think I might just be not playing Corruptor enough, though. I'm gonna have to try him a little bit more after this. Even after doing the challenge, I don't even remember playing Corruptor. I think Infector's fine. I didn't realize he was so... I didn't realize everyone liked the other clan paths more, I guess. But yeah, I like Infector. Making echoes is cool. My only real criticism is I wish that you would be able to play with the echoes. Like, I wish that they didn't go away immediately. Give me them on the next turn and give me like the 3 overstacked echoes, you know? But...
Yeah, that's fair. It would be kind of nice if you could hold on to them, but what I do like about it is he is the only way of generating echoes into Relentless, which is pretty cool if you have Inspire triggers on your floor, because you just kind of keep going out of control very fast.
Yeah, Infector is... So one of the things I'd like to do in Monster Train but have never had the ability to is I would like to get the pop-up that pops up if your combat goes too long. That's like, this has been going for a while, would you like to skip ahead? Infector theoretically can do that because of Glug Cider.
Yeah, there's a couple other ways of getting it too, but yeah, that one's fun. I've seen someone the person who recently got it from me that showed me a screenshot of it was like a 1 damage Transcend Imp that had summon apply sap and applied like 1,000 sap to the divinity and then just 1v1'd him for like 500 rounds.
Well, that's a great idea.
Yeah, it's real funny. I think it's 100 rounds back and forth, and it goes, hey, are you sure about this?
They never ask me that when I do infinites. Alright, yeah, I'll do some readjusting, I think, but I think Infector is good. I think he's a solid B, but I should probably think more about Corruptor. I'll play him when I see him next time. Alright, let's do the Beetle now, shall we?
Yeah.
I got Marshward first. So I'll put Marshward in S tier. I think he's really good, but I think that Marshward is disappointing, as we talked about when he released and as we talked about throughout the period of time. When I think about Marshward and I read his effect, I want this to be create a bunch of eggs, just hatch everything, swarm enemies with millions of units, and what he actually does is make 2 really big guys, and it's okay, but I think Marshward thematically just can't fit in this game because of the 7 unit limit. However, I think he's really strong, like really, really, really strong.
Yeah, I think Marshward is the most consistent path of Echo Right,
For sure.
having played with him a lot. I do not like him. I think that there is, like you said, he's a disappointment, but I also think that he's a design failure. I think there are a lot of weaknesses to him. when his jump of, oh no, now I'm taking 2 additional space on ring 7 if you want to go all in on him, is a big hit to a lot of strategies, leads to a lot of pivoting. I think that his etch trigger stops being useful very quickly on a floor because of the way he works. I think I really dislike that he strongly discourages you from having 2 banner units, because if you need to get a specific banner unit behind him because he's going to overstack the floor, you cannot take that risk. So things like Titan Sentry, Hot Shark can't reasonably be played with him if you're going to go that route. So in all of those circumstances, I think that he's very, very annoying.
Yes.
That said, he has ridiculous stat output throughout the entirety of the game. He's guaranteed win early, guaranteed win mid, and I have him in A tier, despite the fact that I genuinely hate this champion path and think they did a bad job with him.
100% agree. He's sorry, Gabriot. You should go first, and then I will talk.
Oh yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about Martial Lord. I think you guys kind of are on the money. I would say probably I'm the least fan of Martial Lord out of all of us. It seems I did put him in B. As I look through my A, I think I like everything in A more. So my A was like Dark Calling, Imperialist, Cold Channel, Architect, Little Icarus, Superfood and Aggressive Edible, and then well, spoiler alert, I put Repeater in there as well. But I think B just seemed, I guess, what I consider it, which is just really solid, but a bit limiting, I think, in the design space of what you can do on that run, I guess, and also just not a great throwaway if I do want to throw it away, which I often do with Echo Right. So I think it's good, but not great.
Yeah, fair. I want to say about Martial Lord as well, he's confusing. Like, so at the start of your run, when you have Martial Lord, you're getting Bog Flies. Bog Flies want Echoes. In the middle of your run, you're getting, what's his name? Kinhos? What is that guy's name? The weird guy, Beetle guy.
Yeah,
Kinhos Pipe.
Yeah.
Kinhos Pipa. You're getting that guy. And he wants Echoes, but he wants Echoes because he's applying Reap. And
right.
I think, does he have an etch effect on him? The Kinhos Pupa?
No, he doesn't.
He's Strike Reap. And then at the end of the game, you're getting Bogworm, and Bogworm wants etches. So at no point in the run does Martial Lord have a consistent theme of what he wants. He wants Echoes, then he wants Echoes to do Reap damage, and then he wants etch suddenly. And it's just really weird. And despite all of this, like, because he feels really bad and awful to play, and I've always hated him from the very beginning. But despite all of this, you pick any unit that is 3 or less size, you put it on the floor, you play Martial Lord, and your run ends. You get like a 170 trample out of him, which is, you basically get Trample Penumbra out of Martial Lord, which is just absurd.
Yeah, it's Trample Penumbra, but he scales, which is ridiculous.
And you don't have to pay the extra space cost to play him. And you get to put a unit behind him. But I don't know. The Etch Shell effect, it's nice. Like, it's good because it means that you get to hatch your eggs immediately. And you just load your deck on consumes and ignore the early game pretty much because Martial Lord just gives so much stats. But I don't know, man. It's so sad. I wish Martial Lord was cooler. Even if he's strong. Alright. Anything else? Yeah, let's do Repeater then. For Repeater, I will put Repeater in A. I think that Repeater is what Tethys should be. Repeater starts out very fragile and pretty weak, and then becomes playable, gets up to like, what, 25 HP at the end, has a really strong effect. But I think the early game's rocky, and Repeater sets up some crazy stuff at the end. He's good, but not great, I feel.
Yeah, I have an A tier as well. He's, as he said, pretty squishy early. For whatever reason, though, I guess I never find my early game to struggle that much with him, even when I don't start with consumables, which is, I guess, weird. I don't know how to really conceptualize that, but like, it should be bad because it's like 2 pip, 5 health is horrible, right? But I find usually, I don't know, usually I can find, like, I can always force a Surge Stone if I have to. Hopefully there's a banner at at the Merchant of Magic ring too. But yeah, I find the upside of the three Martial Art path, I think just from a fun factor, Repeater is just so much more fun than the others that I guess it edged the other ones out for me. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about Repeater.
I can be honest with you, I actually think Echo Right has fallen the most in my champion tier list over time. I really don't like this champion, and I find that the runs are harder because of this champion. Like, I have Repeater in C tier personally. Like, he's fine, but he's bad early compared to myriad other champions, in my opinion. He's worse early than literally both of the other ones. He's got less like survivability than like a train steward. And I mean, the truth is that you're so reliant on specific drafts in order to kind of keep him afloat. The payout can be great in certain clan combos, but sometimes it's pretty mediocre. And I don't know. I find that Repeater doesn't really have the oomph to get me anywhere that I feel good about. I almost always will pick Martial Art if it's shown, and if I have to pick another one, well, it's maybe Repeater, but I don't know. I don't really like. I maybe throw away Echoes Right entirely at that point and just play a Wormkin run. I don't know. I have mid C tier though.
Fair.
I could be convinced to C tier, honestly. It's a hard one for me to evaluate because, like, I will say of everything I have in my A tier, easily it's the one I throw away the most. There are just a lot of runs where it doesn't work. It's also weird because, like, Wormkin is so built around consumables and etch, but arguably I don't think their actual consumable cards are all that great.
Yeah.
So often it's like you're kind of hoping you get Hellhorned or something like that, or Umbra. I would think of Hellhorn and Umbra when I think of like good consumables. Things like Last Stand or Shroud Spike or Prismal Dust, like those are going to be pretty good. So I think it's definitely like probably dependent on the secondary clan, whether it's going to do good things for you or not.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've got your Last Stands, your Reinforces, the huge doublers in Hellhorned, really big payouts for the Repeater synergies, and you could do stupid things with Impish Scholar and just playing the same doubler like 5 times in a row. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. I don't see it in most clans. I mean, okay, so Awoken, you can maybe do some silly things with like the spikes, I guess. Draw your deck fast, sure. But at that point, how am I getting Echo Right on my floor? What am I doing here? I'd rather have Animus of Will behind an Awoken Hollow, and then you throw away Echo Right or something like that.
Right.
It's tough. I think the one kind of elite tech that I'll point out here that I think Repeater does well with is if you have a really strong spell and you put a 20 and consume in it, he can Repeater that, and it's kind of like a cheesy little holdover that doesn't take card draw. I've done this before with Inferno, actually. 20 consume and -2 on an Inferno, and it turns out just bringing Inferno back every turn was really strong. So you can do some kind of funny things with it, but even then, it just doesn't feel good. I think the thing that's really kind of thrown me here, and I don't want to use this too much in the overall tier list, but he's really bad at 200 shard runs, which is something that I've been doing a lot lately. Mm-hmm. And he just really does not scale into those higher shard count runs very well. A lot of the runs where I win with Repeater or Shellsmith, for instance, I'm skating by in like a semi-cursed run, and you get there at 100 shards, but when the divinity has so much more health and you're dealing with mini bosses that are in the 800 and 900 health range, he just doesn't have what it takes. So I've kind of like fallen down on Echo Right a bit as a result. Now it's basically Martial Art or bust.
Yeah, I think there's 2 problems with Repeater, which is that I feel like Etch wants you to storm a bunch of cards, and Repeater wants you to keep the pool clean so that you can get the high value ones. So Repeater doesn't generate you a ton of value as a result. A lot of the time you're ending up not really playing Repeater in a run with Etch. And the other problem is that a lot of the Etch units are kind of bad.
Yeah.
Like, what are some etch effects that are good? You get the +5 attack, right, for First of Kin, and then after
Right.
that it's like,
That's it. I mean, that's your only uncommon. Your other one is Bogworm, which is a rare unit. So
Hey.
that's and like what? I guess
Yeah.
Glareminder has one
Glareminder.
for Reap.
The most
Yeah.
random one.
Yeah,
how much
right?
reap does Glareminder give when you etch?
It's like 2 to the
Two.
floor.
I
It's
think
so
it's 2.
bad.
Yeah.
It's so weird that that unit has that effect.
Right. Yeah, it's like it's already a sweeper. Why does it need to also reap? Like,
Yeah, what are they doing? I just feel like the problem is he doesn't really bring a whole lot to the table, right? You're gonna end up bringing back like what's the one that pushes enemies back? The 13
Hosting
damage.
Kin.
Yeah, Hosting Kin. You're gonna end up starting to bring that card back, or you're going to end up with that card as like a dead weight because you can't play it, so you have to remove consumes first. And
Yep.
I don't know.
Exactly.
I feel like the biggest benefit for Etch in general is when you hit Bog Slime, so it can generate you the good Wormkin resource. But
I will say I've had it can be good with endless eggs if you do the soul siphon.
yeah, so
Um,
Siphon.
Yeah,
Or-
I've had some pretty nutty ones there where it's like you can basically do that on the mid and bottom floor and not really even get Ember drained if you play it first, and then you just put your egg down and have it hatch.
yeah, you could do it with the hatch eggs or remove 3 shell from eggs too.
Oh, right,
Accelerated
yep.
incubation maybe.
Exactly. Yep, accelerated incubation.
Yeah. No, I just feel like Repeater's harder to keep alive, and he doesn't fit on your floor
Yeah.
too. Space is a premium in Wormkin, but
Right.
I'm probably gonna end up moving him down a bit when I reorganize. However, let's talk about Shellsmith, shall we?
Yeah.
I don't like Shellsmith. I'm gonna put him in like... I think I'm gonna put him at the top of C for now. I'm really not a big fan of Shellsmith. I think that Shellsmith is... He doesn't do much, it feels like. I think that he's okay in a run where... Well, here's the problem. Wormkin units don't have a survivability problem. Wormkin units are really good at staying alive baseline. They almost all have high HP and built-in survivability. So Shellsmith has to be paired with, like, Hellhorned, basically, or Awoken. So, I don't know. Maybe you could play Shellsmith with Umbra, and then consume to keep your morsels alive.
It's sad, but I've actually done that once before with Alloyed Construct. It was a really bad run, but it worked.
Yeah, like, I guess that might be playable, but I think Shellsmith really benefits from a repeater splash. But I really just feel like Shellsmith
Yeah.
doesn't bring a lot to the table.
I actually have Shellsmith lower than Repeater personally. I think you're spot on. The units that you're going to be seeing with Shellsmith, your Wormkin units, don't really need his help. And the things that do need his help, you're not always going to be seeing. They're in other clans entirely. And when you finally get him, he's like a bad steelworker. I mean, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Like, it's just hard. Because, sure, if I can etch, I get armor, but those run out eventually, and nothing else really pays out for etching that well. So, what's really happening here? You're going to put him in front of a First of Kin, and what? He's going to basically be a chump blocker, I guess, because First of Kin already has like 50 life and is going to be fine if you toss him, I don't know, 25 health or something in a multi-strike. I just don't know. I mean, at that point, your floor is better off as 2 of those First of Kins with space, and then you throw away Echo Right. So it's tough. I just find it hard to create a run where Shellsmith is meaningful. Even though I think his ability is otherwise fine, I just don't think it jives with what's ever's going on in the rest of any run of Wormkin.
Yeah, he's a weird one to evaluate. As you guys say that out, I feel like I've probably overranked him. I did put him at B, just kind of right there, in the mix. Like, I don't know. It's like defense is just not as important as offense typically, and it's just preventing you only defense. Granted, I do think it does a pretty good job at that, but I don't know. It's tough for me to ever justify going all in on Shellsmith. Usually I'd want to flex it with one of the other paths, and usually Repeater would be that. But then you're locking yourself into only one card being repeated per turn. Granted, if you do that, you're probably going Repeater 1, Shellsmith 2, so I think you're getting like 8 armor per etch, which is... it's serviceable. That's usually enough to make the floor survive if you're getting... 2 etches a turn, maybe, on the average, but the unit itself is still taking up 2 pip. It's not really doing much damage. The flat stats are just not that good on it. There have been runs where I think the problem is it shines with cards that are pretty bad. So like Total Recall, it's actually pretty good with that card, but Total Recall just sucks. So like, it's like, are you going to build around bad cards to make this path good? It's like a weird dilemma, right? Like, because you can technically get 4 etches out of Total Recall, I believe, since it itself consumes. Like, and yeah, you could maybe, and definitely I've had runs where you find the tome, I forget the name of it, but the Wormkin tome that brings 5 consumables back, and then you're golden. That's like the best scenario for Shellsmith, and you're getting continual value there. But the problem is, like, at a certain point, doesn't it just become overkill? Like, you've got so much armor that you're definitely surviving. You'll definitely beat Relentless, but how are you going to deal with the waves? It still hasn't really contributed to that, really, right? So I could definitely drop it probably to like C or D. But I will say it doesn't feel... they all kind of feel the same to me. I actually never have found any particular Echorite path to feel drastically more or less powerful to me. They all kind of run into the same problems of like, sometimes they'll be really good, sometimes they'll be kind of useless for me. Maybe Martial Lord's the exception to that, but I just don't like to play Martial Lord, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fair.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I hear you for sure. I think Shellsmith is a good example of like a good path that just doesn't... you don't need it, is the thing.
Right.
Because if there were, say, an etch gain rage unit that was uncommon in Wormkin and had like low survivability but was really, really powerful offensively, like even stronger than First of Kin, which has some baked in HP, then I think you could really justify this kind of a clan path, right? Because it would be like AoE survivability, kind of like the pseudo steelworker in here. You'd have your etches from Wormkin etchings, so even if your etches are low value, just having etches at all would be enough. But there's really, that payout doesn't exist. I think the best example of a run that I've put together with him was, what is it? I think it was Nameless Siren infused with First of Kin, duped with a multi-strike behind him, and we had a 6 base floor with that, and he was the front line. And I basically assembled kind of what we're talking about, but it was really reliant on incants from Stygian to actually get the offensive presence to be good enough. So, like, yeah, you can kind of assemble those. It just needs something in Wormkin that does it, right? And First of Kin's not it, is the problem.
Right.
So,
Yep, that is the problem. Ultimately, if you're playing like an Etch Storm sort of setup where you just throw out a bunch of cards that etch, you're probably going to get like 20 etches out. And when you do the math on Shellsmith 3, it comes out to be like 240 armor, which is enough to get you through the waves probably, but you're going to not... I guess the upside is whatever's behind him has the armor, so you'll probably win Relentless, but it's very easy for Shellsmith to just get caught and killed, which I feel like is a problem of... his base stats are weird. He's like a 15-15, right? Something like that?
Rank 1, 15-15, yeah.
And then it scales up to like, I don't know what it even scales up to.
I think it only goes to like 80 or something like that.
I don't know. I feel like I just feel like Shellsmith is a little too useless in a clan. He's good in a clan that doesn't need him, basically.
Yeah.
And yeah, he just doesn't really jive with the rest of the clan. It's weird that Wormkin is this split clan. Like, it's very clearly defined and designed as half of the clan is the default and half is exiles, where the others are like, it's all default and then we added the exiles.
Yes, you can definitely tell the design difference that went into it when you know the Exile champion is going to exist at the time.
Yeah.
And it changes the way that all of the other clans are built, whereas they feel like they have an overarching strategy and both of them play in different ways. But Wormkin is two overarching strategies, and well, frankly, one of them is just way better than the other and has better support and makes more sense. And one of them is just this weird thing that kind of works sometimes. And yeah, that's just the story of Echo Right, I find. He's that weird one.
Yeah, he's just really reliant on your external clan bringing in a big payout card because Wormkin doesn't really have a good consume payout card to play off of.
Yeah, all of the cards that would be good payouts are instead things like or extract cards instead, right? I mean, think of like what if I'm gonna forget the name of it, the insta kill an enemy or like the -666. What is that?
Yeah.
Perfect
Insanity.
Insanity.
Perfect Insanity.
If Perfect Insanity didn't have the extract or had like extract 2 but was consume, that'd be a really good payout for a lot of the etch synergies here.
Yeah.
But because all of those big payout cards are such high extracts instead and do not have consume and cannot have consume easily added to them, your options are basically there's like 2 things I can think of in game to get consume on those, and it's just not going to work very well. So it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. Poor Echo Right. I'm gonna do a little bit of reorganizing of my list before we leave because I wanted my tier list to not be inflated at the top, so I think I'm gonna bump Superfood and Little Icarus down to S and keep my S tier as Firelight, Eternal Flame, Aggressive Edible, Strangler, and Marshward. And then I think I'm gonna knock Repeater, and I think Brawler gets knocked to B here. Sorry, Brawler. I do like you, but you're not as good as some of these other A tiers. It just feels wrong to put Brawler in the same tier as Titan Channel.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. Mine's actually pretty well distributed. I'm pretty centralized on B tiers. There's like 10 champions in B tier for me, but at the same time, that's kind of a good way to be, right? You're looking for a little bit of a bell curve. You don't want all of them being very strong or weak or whatever. And mine kind of is pretty well diversified, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, I made 2 more changes, and now I actually have an almost clean bell curve here. I'm moving Conduit and Monstrous down to D tier also, and that'll give me 5 at the top in S, and then 7 in A and C, 8 in B, and 6 in D, and then 3 in the Exile. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, real quick wrap up, I would like to do your best champion in the game, your worst champion in the game, and then the median champion in the game, I guess, is what I'd like to have as well. This one's a little harder to figure out, but what do you think is like the okayest champion in the game? I can go first if you guys want time to think about that question.
Are you thinking of it like the whole champion overall or a path specifically?
Like path, sorry. Yeah, champion path.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So for me, I think best champion in the game, or best path in the game is Firelight. Worst path is Dire Channel. I think those are easy. I think my pick for okayest champion in the game is probably Cultivating Sentient. She's right in the middle of my B tier. I think that she's always okay. She brings decent value, but she's not like auto win or auto lose. You build around her, she does something and you run. Those are my choices there.
Yeah, I'll say I think we agree on the top. Firelight is the strongest path in my opinion. I have Reaper as worse than Dire Channel, but I could honestly flip those. I think my only reasoning for that is that not only is the champion bad, the champion is also flimsier, lower HP than both Dire Channel and Royalty, but also it's a harder trigger to activate. It's really hard to get slays. Whereas at least with the others, I can incant or rally, and those are things that are mostly in my control. So like Reaper is like the quintessential, just everything is wrong with him. Go ahead.
I'll go to bat for Reaper for a second here. I think of Reaper in the same way that I think of something like Alpha Fiend, where his slay is just something, or actually more like Branded Warrior. His slay is just something added on top of external scaling you need to have. He's still bad, don't get me wrong, but there are cases, I think he only is playable with Brawler also, but there are cases where he's okay. I mean, bad, but not as bad as some other things, which is why he escapes my wrath a little bit, but he is very bad.
Yeah, that's fair. As far as the most okay champion, it's actually a pretty tough one for me, but I think the okayest champion is probably cultivating Sentient for me. Whenever I talk about her, I'm always just like, yeah, all right, she's fine. Is the best thing I can say about her at any given moment. I like draw cards. Cards are good. And yeah, her scaling, she at least does some kind of scaling. She has a lot of life. She's very okay, but she's never going to be like, oh yeah, that's what I needed on this run ever. But she's also never that bad, and she can sometimes do some cheeky things on lower floors, like we talked about, where she just like kills a guy, and I go, haha, cultivating is doing fine down there. I'm gonna go play up here with the big boys on my main floor and actually win the run now. And it's like a novelty that she's doing an okay job. So yeah, I find that she's very much the most middle of the pack champion I can think of.
Yeah, I guess my thought with this question is, if I were to try to bring champions into a line of power level, I'd want them to be about the power level of cultivating Sentient.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think if all of them were at that level, that'd be okay. Like, I think it'd be fine. Like, and I would probably lean towards champions need to be a little bit stronger. I'd probably want all my champions to be the most impactful part of my run from like a design perspective, because then your runs are gonna look more diverse, right? Because every champion is going to change your run significantly. I hate is a strong word. I dislike that so many of the runs are solved without your champion at all, which means that things like Hellhorn runs or Awoken runs, they look very samey to me. Yeah. And I kind of wish there was more diversity, and the champion is the primary way of forcing that, and they just kind of whiff on that. It's actually why I love playing Chief and Fade more than any champion, simply because I play around them as opposed to everything else in the run. So I get a chance to, build an actual run that looks different than, say, I don't know, something in Hellhorn or whatever. So that's why I look forward to them the most.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's like why another just factor that I rank a high champ around is just, will I likely build around this champ? If so, they're probably S or A, right? And I think everything in my S fits that bill. It's like I'm just never gonna not build around a Fade or a Chef, or honestly even a Titan channel. I don't really build around a Titan channel, but for sure it's going on the floor, right? Whereas like sometimes I'll have stuff in my 8th tier that just doesn't cut it, right? I've had runs where maybe a Shard Tail Queen, for example, sometimes just doesn't work in a run, right? Yeah. I have pretty similar picks kind of across the board. I think I already discussed, for me, I think Corruptor was my top. I would say I would pick Cultivate as well, Cultivate Sentient for that, but since you both already picked it, I'll just throw out another one there I think is similar. I think Thornlord could fit the bill as well.
Sure.
When I think of Thornlord, it's always similar to Cultivate, gonna give me something, and usually that's just gonna be draw. But if I do want to put it on the floor, it'll work. It won't be amazing, but it will work. So I think they're pretty similar in that regard. I just think maybe Cultivate's a little bit better at doing both of those things, but I think they're very similar, just very, very middle of the road. And then I think I still put Dire Channel as the worst. I think it is close between Reaper and Dire Channel. I think the thing that separates it for me is just that Reaper has an upside that I just don't see with Dire Channel. Like, I just don't see any upside with Dire Channel. It's like, what is my best case scenario, that I kill one unit? Whereas at least I could technically get multi-strike on a Reaper, and I could do that through cards or just simply flexing the path. Whereas I just can't get that with Dire Channel.
Now I will say this. Imagine, if you will, Titan Channel 2 Dire Channel 1.
Oh.
It's like multi-strike.
Oh, Cranberry. Where did you come from?
The for real on this though is I have actually done something really cheeky where I've incanted Solgard to just under like actually the removing phased, and then he would just shoot like 9. It's like 9 damage, or like it's like 18 or something. It's not very good, but it can kill Will Wings. And I was looking at this and I was like, this is the most pathetic throwaway champion I've ever seen in my life.
He's
It's
doing
so
it.
bad. Yeah, we tried it the once, never again.
Yeah. I think Dire Channel really just got... He's a champion whose use case got removed from the game because he's good and relentless if you keep him up, but that doesn't matter anymore. If you survived Relentless on the Divinity, like 95% of your runs have won already. So there he is.
It's interesting. What I ended up doing in the unofficial balance patch forum that I think was really cool is I just got rid of the whole like action do damage thing and just made him have attack. And one of the nice things is that it actually like synergizes with other stuff, right? Because those attack stats stack. And the other part that I like is that I gave him, when you reach a certain threshold, you gain trample. So you're encouraged to keep buffing him, and eventually he will overflow his attack onto other units if you can incant enough. And I've actually found that overall it plays a lot more interestingly, and it's actually worth taking, but it doesn't take much, I think, in a lot of cases to get these bad champions into good shape, honestly. In some cases, it's as easy as HP, so...
Yeah, that's pretty smart. Another thing that I've seen people throw around is instead of doing it all in one, he should do 1 hit per shard. So like, you do 10 attacks, it's 7 hits or 10 hits of 7.
The machine gun effect, it would lag your computer so
my
hard.
God, yeah.
You get like, if you get Founding Seal and you just rip that on Relentless, he's just like machine gunning literally like 100 times per round. It would be a nightmare. I tried this once in the unofficial balance patch and I almost crashed my computer.
So there you go.
Yeah, there you go. That would never survive on mobile.
It's a fun idea. It would be pretty cool if he would like wiggle his arms like he was shooting guns too, or like firing things. But yeah, I mean, I've seen Transcended nearly freeze my game, so it is often easy to overlook and forget that there are technological limitations as well as to why things can't work like that.
Yeah, for sure. It'd
Dire
be cool if there
Channel
were
crashes the PC.
Yeah, pretty much.
Set up your infinite, get them up to 1,000 shards, and have your computer melt.
It would be amazing to watch exactly once.
Yeah, and then you would never get to watch it again. Alright, I'll do Cranberries here since he's not here. He forfeited his rights over to me. As Cranberry, I think the strongest champion in the game is probably Handheld Totem. I love that Tethys
easily.
girl.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, easy pick. I think the weakest champion in the game is probably Titan Channel Solgard. I think that one. Maybe Aggressive Edible, it's close. And then for the okayest champion in the game, I'm gonna pick Conduit Tethys. Or maybe Corruptor. I'm Cranberry.
I believe you, Cranberry.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a Frank Caliendo level impression there.
Thank you. I sound just like him, I hear. Alright guys, I think we can wrap it up here. A lot of fun. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thanks for having us. And obviously, like, it's been cool kind of seeing you do this as a series leading up to this. So I think it's kind of a cool kind of activity overall. So
yeah, everyone's feedback was very positive. I thought it'd be fun to do something like this just to break up the norm a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're just kind of playing normal Monster Train every single day.
Yeah.
Like, it's different in my case where I'm playing like a bunch of different kinds of things in a week. But yeah.
Plus it gave us an opportunity to do another tier list. I feel like it's been a pretty good while now.
It really has. Yeah, it's been months. Maybe
Yeah.
half a year or something at least. I don't even know.
I think the last time we got together to do something like this was for Cranberry's 500th video. That was a while ago.
Yeah, I was gonna say that sounds like that was forever ago, but yeah. I think you're right.
We did like a little round table thing. Let me look up when that was. But Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else I really want to tier list.
Yeah, I mean, especially with like, there's not like balance patches hitting us here, so it's not like things are changing. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a shame. The last time we did this together was 4 months ago.
Yeah, fair enough.
Cranberry put up talking to Voix, Rising Dusk, and Gabriot about Monster Train balance and the 200 shard meta and more. September 19th.
True. Yeah, sweet. I do remember that.
Yeah, but
it'd be cool if we got some more Monster Train stuff. I always kind of harbor a little bit of hope, but I say this as someone who does not know the truth. So I put that up front because I know that like private tester or stuff like that, but like I do not know the truth here. I get the sense that maybe Shiny Shoe doesn't have control over the Monster Train IP, and that maybe Good Shepherd does, and that would would explain the reason why they're like so strong into Inkbound, which is coming out in like alphas and stuff. That would explain why they're trying to build like a new IP. That just
and
it kind of
self-publish.
Right, exactly. It kind of explains a lot of the behaviors I'm seeing, why we're not seeing any more support for Monster Train. I feel like if something like Inkbound is successful, they might try to buy Monster Train back, and then we might see something. But I don't know what the time frame for that would be or what that would look like. And it's all guesswork anyway. I'm just thinking aloud at this stage, but that's my suspicion anyway.
The biggest telling factor for me is that Shiny Shoe didn't do Monster Train Mobile, did they?
No, they did not. Yeah,
so
that was
that was a Good Shepherd thing, which leads me to assume that when they did the publishing deal, they probably gave up the rights. However, I don't really want to start rumors, but I've already done it. That's just my opinion on it. I have a feeling that you are not wrong based on what we've seen. They probably just moved on to Inkbound. My other theory is that Monster Train's codebase is such a nightmare and the game is a horror, so they just said, fuck it, we move on.
That's fair. The code base is pretty tough. I don't think it's like irrecoverable, but I do think they have a lot of technical debt in it, which is a tough thing for them to get over. So there's definitely an argument for if they wanted to come back to it, just make like Monster Train 2 and fix all that garbage, and then it's just so much easier to support.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's all hearsay. Not even hearsay. It's just all me speculating is really the word for it. I don't really know the answer to it. That's why I had to preface that, and that's what I'm going to end on too. So,
yeah, I'd probably also imagine that. I believe that they want. I know they redacted it, but they had at one point said they were doing an Android release, so I'd imagine they would have to do that if they were doing that before they did any rebalancing.
Yeah, I think I don't know if that's been redacted. I think that the last update we had was that was still like a desired thing. Yeah. I don't know what like state that's in though. Like maybe they're just trying to refine the iOS one first and then port that one over. Who knows, right? So
right.
All right, guys. I think you guys would like to do some plugs here. Tell the people who you are and such.
Yeah, sure. Why not? You've been hearing me talk for 3 hours at this point, so you probably know I am ye old Rising Dusk. I've got a channel that does the YouTube things for Monster Train as well. I kind of do a variety of things, ranging from regular runs on high win streak stuff to some 200 shard meta that I'm learning, to cursed or blessed runs where people can send me stuff and I'll try to solve the run on my own. I've done a bunch of, we mentioned Inkbound vaguely. I've been doing that recently when there was that technical test going on. That was a lot of fun. I could see myself maybe playing that when it actually releases. That seems pretty good, especially given the state of the game right now compared to like where it is in its development cycle. It's an alpha still, right? They're not even at like early access. I could see a lot of improvements coming out before that hits EA, and then that could be really sick. But yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the channel. So
yeah, and my channel is in just a weird state right now. Monster Train wise, I'm basically the Dr. Mantis Toboggan of Dusk's Cursed Seeds right now.
Amazing.
I pick up the scraps. But yeah, I did some Inkbound videos. I have one more coming out. I don't know how much more their content I can really get out of the current technical test. But maybe in the next iteration I can do some more stuff. Yeah, I was doing a game called Hellfire Tactics, but unfortunately that game got end-of-lifed already, so that's kind of discouraging. Yeah.
Oh, really? That sucks.
They went out of business.
Right.
It's a shame. I thought that game was going to do all right, but I also couldn't get into it, so I get it.
Yeah, it's tough. I've been learning a lot of harsh realities of like indie dev lately, just from a lot of like I've been trying to get into it myself too, but it's really discouraging. Like most stories just end in failure. So
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
Not everyone gets to make Terraria.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, it's like just high roll and make the next Hades and become the next Supergiant or something.
Yeah.
Why don't they just make good games instead of bad games?
Yeah, seriously, I was talking to Voix about that recently. It's just it's cutthroat, and a lot of like not necessarily YouTube comments, but comments I hear in general about it. It's just like, man, this indie game is just like, it just doesn't hit with me. It's just not good, and it's like, why wouldn't they just do this other thing? And it's like, I mean, you think about it, when they were making Terraria or Stardew Valley or whatever, they didn't know that they were making such a big thing. They were just doing a cool thing that they enjoyed and supporting it as they could. And then it took off like a freaking rocket. And now it's like they could just retire off of existing sales with no further support and also provide for like their entire family for all time. So it's tough. It's part of it is like luck, and part of it is just a good idea, and it's hard to say what the mix is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like for every one of those successes, there's tens of thousands of failures. And yeah, I saw some Reddit thread on the game dev recently where it was like talking about how they collected all the stories of people who went like and quit their job to like go all in on indie dev, and it was like basically unanimously always a failure.
Yeah. It's a shame.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens.
It do be like that.
Yeah, I mean, they probably Hellfire Tactics, I feel, did better than most too. I think it's just that game would have been a market success if it didn't have server costs.
Yeah, server costs. I think also it's something I personally don't care about in a game, but I think you have to have a very like graphically appealing game.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty hard to get by if you don't have that. Your mechanics really have to shine if you're gonna kind of get by without super flashy graphics and whatnot.
Agreed. That's a big agree. You can't get away with a Slay the Spire-esque graphics in a game that lacks the Slay the Spire-esque mechanics.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Slay the Spire, very ugly, but it did define a genre.
Right. I mean, there's so much kind of like the design work that went into it that explains its success, and it gets away with horrible graphics as a result. But you just can't do that if you're echoing an existing genre, or you're not just like, the word I don't even want to use pioneering, but there's got to be something so unique to survive a non-flashy setup.
Yeah.
Yeah. Needs to be super nerdy, I feel. You have to like attract like the super nerdy people that don't care about it.
Yeah, you gotta get the hardcore fans in there.
Or Fortress, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yep. I was just thinking of it.
Well, I'll do some plugs for Cranberry as well, even though he always says no. Now he's not here. You can go check out Cranberry. He's the 20 Minutes Till Dawn guy now. I think he occasionally plays some of the other ones, but those games, like the 20 Minutes Till Dawn, or I guess the Vampire Survivors likes, don't really make it too far. I know he's waiting for Dark and Darker. he's probably going to play a lot of that, and he's been playing the unofficial balance patch as well. I went to his channel to see what he's been up to. In his most recent Monster Train upload, the thumbnail is unofficial balance patch Penumbra is sick, and in it, Penumbra is standing on top of a fighter jet, and the fighter jet has a gun.
That's incredible.
That is a good thumbnail. You should go check out Cranberry's channel so you can see that thumbnail. It's really good. Not Penumbra has the gun. The fighter jet has the gun. It has an arm coming out of the nose. It's a banger.
I love it. I don't even know what that means for the run, but I love it.
I think Penumbra's in it, and maybe there's a jet.
Right, there's a jet and someone's got a gun, and that's your monster train.
Did you put a jet into the unofficial balance patch?
I didn't think I did, but who knows at this point.
You sneak any planes in there? Alright, and I guess I'll talk about myself too. Why not? It feels worth it. I'm playing Monster Train every day, and I'm playing Slice and Dice. Hey, play Slice and Dice. That game's really good. If you guys start playing it, you can join me for my next tier list in that game.
All right,
it's excellent.
I will join it just so I have that to look forward to.
Yeah, you can. We can all gather around the round table and talk about how bad Gambler is, and then I can go read the YouTube comments.
It's crazy. I've actually watched enough of that game. I feel like I could make enough commentary to keep it interesting, but certainly I have not played it because it's not on Steam. It's like my organization is so highly valued. I just kind of avoid things off of that platform these days.
You can always do the add game to Steam thing, but I get it.
That's a good point, actually. That's a good point.
It is.
Yeah.
I advocate for it because itch.io is like, I think the developer gets almost all of the profits, and the game is. It's worth it. You also get the Android version, but this is. I didn't mean to turn this into a Slice and Dice pitch. However, Slice and Dice, it is like, it probably is the most satisfying strategy game I've ever played. It feels so good to play. So I'm playing a lot of it right now. I also have a fun goal.
Yeah, I'm sold.
It's like a card game. It's not, because you think of it as like, oh man, dice rolling, that's gonna feel bad RNG wise, but then it's really just a card game with like drawing cards, but instead of drawing cards, you're rolling dice, and you just have a little more agency over the RNG. But,
yeah, I mean, there's like an acceptable level of RNG in a lot of the genres here, and if you're not worrying about card draw or whatever, then rolling dice is an acceptable form of it. It's the same idea as like, oh, what order do I draw my deck in? Stuff like that. So.
Yeah. It's not Dicey Dungeons levels of bad. Oh, God, Dicey Dungeons. All right. I'm gonna...
Yeah. It's turning into like a game tier list.
Yeah. All right, let's chain this in. Got another 3 hours to go here.
Yeah. I was going to say this should become a podcast series, just talk about random stuff.
Yeah. This is just, get Cranberry back in here.
Griffland speed tier.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up the video now. Thanks for coming, guys. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been great.
I'll have a link in the description to all of their tier lists, all of their channels, all of that stuff. So, yeah, you guys, if you'd like to say goodbye, now is your chance. I won't talk over you.
Hell yeah. Catch y'all later. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
All right, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.